Well, hello and welcome to the stream. Let's go ahead and see what we can get into. We're going to do a little bit of this Lux Thicket radiation stream. Enjoy the stream.
Email, transferring funds, and interacting with various government agencies. Sources close to the administration said President Clinton is also considering signing a pair of executive orders that would facilitate the connection if individuals' bank accounts and federal records to a government identification card. White House officials declined comment. The Postal Service U.S. card would use either smart cards, plastic cards that carry a unique number that can be read by a scanner.
Get on up!
Computerized records stored on the network.
Get on up!
What are called PCMIA cards, which can contain megabytes of personal information. And so my question from
check 1, 2, check.
In other words, if we are all to get a card that will allow us to interact fairly with the federal government.
Well, welcome to the stream.
Stop fraud. Welfare fraud, just about any kind of fraud you can name, there's plenty of it on that. If it would stop illegal immigration by giving you identification as U.S. citizens and many other problems, would you accept one of these cards? Or would you regard such a card as...
Hello and welcome to the stream.
And would you say, no, I will not use that card away from me? The Fox network plans to, has made an acquisition that will allow it to steal a lot of some of the best affiliates from primarily CBS. CBS, 8 major CBS affiliates are defecting to the Fox network. And the big ones. WJDK-TV Detroit, WJW Cleveland, WAGA Atlanta, WTBT Tampa, and WITI Milwaukee. The affiliates all defecting to the Fox network. So the landscape of the networks is certainly changing. Television in general is changing. And I guess the networks are looking at building dinosaurs. All right, well, that's a couple of pieces of food for thought. And I thought we would go ahead and get started again. Coming up this Friday night, at a point, it'll be Preston and he'll tell us about one of our projects and kind of pick up where he'll be. So that should be a truly a fascinating program.
Well, hello and welcome to the stream.
But as they say in the car racing world,
Let's see how long this bumper music goes for.
they would be there, wherever it is. They never end. I don't attend automobile racing, but I remember the commercials.
Right,
Years
it depends on how good the medication is today.
Here we break. Back will come with two-way talk radio from the high desert. This is Coast to Coast AM.
Real good for they are.
That was Art Bell hosting Coast to Coast AM on this Somewhere in Time. You're listening to Art Bell, Somewhere in Time. Tonight featuring Coast to Coast AM from May 24th, 1994.
And good morning, all. It should be an interesting morning. Lots and lots to talk about, as I think I just documented. It's a wild world out there, isn't it? And it seems to be getting wilder by the day, but that's all right. Makes talk radio all the more interesting. Telephone lines are open, and I'm ready. You're on the air on the wild card line. Good morning.
Hi, Art.
Hello.
Yeah, 3 or 4 things I'd like to talk about. First off, I don't think the terrorists got us
though it was a federal crime, and I suppose technically they might have received it. I know there's no death penalty in New York.
I know, but if the crime bill establishes a death penalty for any foreign terrorists that come to America, the United States of America, and kill Americans, then that would take precedence over what New York does.
Well, that's true, and I too think it ought to be that way. 6 people lost their lives, 1,000 injured, property damage you can't believe. Yes, I think it would be justified.
And they could be in prison for a while, and some of their buddies could hijack or skyjack a Boeing 747 in Europe and start shooting passengers until we release them.
Yeah, I know.
And then they don't do very much time. So if we give them the death penalty, then it's over.
Well, I don't think we could ever release them, but I too can imagine release the New York or else kind of deal.
Now, on the national ID card, I would be for that. I don't consider that the mark of the beast. But if they ever want to put something on my right hand or my forehead, I would draw the line at that. I would say no, and I would take up a gun and shoot the first person that tries.
Well, how about a very long, skinny needle in the ear?
Nothing.
No,
you
you're
don't
not
put
going to
anything on me. The mark of the beast goes on your right hand or forehead. One other thing I wanted to mention. Jackie Kennedy's camp funeral yesterday.
Yes.
I saw John Kennedy Jr. reading from the Bible, and do you know he read that exact part that describes the rapture? I can paraphrase it for you real fast.
All right, if you wish.
Okay, it says something to the fact that the Lord Jesus shall descend from heaven to the clouds of earth, and the dead shall rise up first, and then the living shall be caught up with them in the clouds, and there they shall meet Jesus and be with him forever.
Well, I imagine it's going to be a frightful sight for the living watching the dead rise up.
It'll happen in the blink of an eye, though. That's the thing. And that's about 1/1000th of a second. That's in 1 Corinthians. This, the part he read, was 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 16 and 17. He started a little bit before this, huh? He mentioned that. He did mention that. And
While I've got you, do you believe in angels?
yes, I do. Because the Bible describes angels.
Did you happen to see that program?
I did see the end of it, yes.
Well, I'll tell you something else. Thank you very much. Every now and then, there is something that comes along that just puts a chill right down my spine. And there were a couple of times watching that when I definitely got that effect. I mean it, just a kind of, that chill that goes right down the spine and kind of spreads out. It got to me. I do think there may be something to this angel business. Hello there on the toll-free line. You're on the air.
Hey, all right, let me kill my radio here.
Kill it, yes.
Good evening.
Give it life plus 100. Good evening, sir.
How are you?
Just fine.
Good. Angel.
Yes.
Yes. I believe that I encountered an angel about 4 years ago. I was crossing a road in order to retrieve a hubcap that I had lost from my car. And doing so, I was hit by another car that was traveling at about 45 miles an hour. But anyway, I flew up over this girl's car and felt myself being caught and lowered to the ground.
Wow.
And yeah, and then my father was with me. He saw the whole thing in his rearview mirror.
He saw you. Well, exactly what happened. You went up into the air, and part of the way down, you were suddenly, as if you were caught.
Yes, and lowered gently to the ground.
And your father witnessed that?
He did not. He saw me get hit, and I'm not sure if he noticed how far I flew or anything like that. He didn't see, any physical being at all. But after I was laying on the ground on my back, then I'll call him a guy. But he held my head in his lap.
It was a guy angel.
Yeah, held my head in his lap and was singing. And then the ambulances got there, and he was gone. Anyhow, later I asked my father about him, and he said, "What man?" But
well, I'll ask you what all the critics ask. Is it possible that you were under a stressful condition, hallucinating?
It was just too real.
I mean, I'm sure you asked yourself that question.
I have asked myself that question. I've played it over about 1 million times.
Sure.
And it was just too real. But I just remember everything too vividly. And I just remembered, how much of a peace I felt and everything when
you got there. Okay, that's exactly the kind of stories they were telling on this program last night. And I must say I was impressed. Maybe I'm easily impressed, or maybe it is that I want to believe. That could be true.
Yeah.
But it seems like there's too many stories.
That's exactly my point. I mean, I can see the skeptic's point of view, but until you've experienced it, it's too real. And too many people experience the same kinds of feelings. You know what I'm saying? It's almost like with the UFOs and aliens. All these people that describe the exact same thing that have never met. It's kind of almost like the same scenario.
I appreciate your call, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Take care. Well, there you have it. There's the story about it. Now, what do you believe about it? Do you think he was hallucinating in some moment of mortal stress? And certainly it would have been that. What do you believe? Angels real, or just the concoction of a stressed mind? I don't know. There was a story also on the program last night about a little girl who was dying of cancer, and she got through the usual chemotherapy, I'm sure, and radiation therapy, the god-awful stuff they do. And her body was wrecked. And she was in the process of dying, and everybody knew it. And she was visited by a series of angels, a whole series of angels. And the angels took her to heaven and showed her what it was going to be like. And then finally one angel came, which assisted her, she said, was going to, or I guess did assist her in dying. And so, do you believe in all that stuff, or is it the concoction of a mind facing something that is so fearful, so unknown, that the mind itself, the id, concocts a story that it will be comfortable with? What do you think the truth is? On the wildcard line, you're on the air. Good morning.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I'd like to ask a question.
Okay, where are you?
I'm in Columbia, Missouri.
Columbia, Missouri. Okay.
Do I need to turn my radio down?
Well, yes, you do.
Is it?
All right. That big KFRU, I think, in Columbia, Missouri.
Okay. The thing you were talking about that card the government wants us to have. How come everyone is so concerned about welfare fraud, about illegal immigrants, and they're not concerned about the white middle class people who avoid their taxes, the white middle class people who abuse their children? They're always after the minorities, they're always after the lower classes. They do all these laws and they get cards to make sure that no one cheats, but they do nothing to protect people from the upper classes who are cheating and doing the same things because they have all the money.
Well, money rules. I don't deny that. It's true. What about the card? I mean, surely there is a lot of fraud, and surely 1 million or 2 million illegal aliens in this country are a hurtful thing. So
I don't believe they're that hurtful.
Oh, okay.
I think there are a lot more hurtful things going on in our society. There are people manufacturing bombs. There's a military that is supporting something like the School of the Americas. There are some really hurtful things going on in our country, more than some illegal aliens who are coming so they can send money back to their families in places like Mexico so their families can survive. Why don't we protect ourselves against the corporations who are embezzling our money? I mean, why are we so concerned about the lower classes, so concerned about minorities?
Well, I know you can serve it up the way you are, which is a compassionate way. But in fact, if you look at all the money we spend, about 2/3 of it to 3/4 goes for the kind of programs that you're talking about, a big part of our budget.
It doesn't a big part of our budget go for the defense, too?
Well, defense has been scaled back drastically, and it's continuing to go down. No, most of our budget goes for social programs and paying back the debt that we've incurred.
So does that mean that a lot of people who are in the upper class in our society, maybe because their money is private or in private corporations, why do we excuse that so much? Why do we excuse white middle class crime? Or why don't we feel it's that important to go after?
Well, I think that it is. And why we excuse it is because our society is, in fact, balanced on the side of the rich and the powerful. It is.
So
That is a fault or a benefit of capitalism. I don't know which the answer is, but it is a true statement. I don't deny it.
So what do you propose to do about it?
Well, I'll tell you, most revolutions that have occurred in the world occur when the middle class, the great middle class, is no longer more or less satisfied. Revolutions rarely occur where you have a big middle class in any society. So it will eventually take care of itself. If things get too far out of proportion, there will be a revolution. If the middle class basically gets too unhappy, there will be a revolution. And I suppose it's a self-correcting process. Other than that, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, thanks. The other thing I'll throw out to the listeners is the concept of a single-payer healthcare plan, what people think about that.
All right, thank you. Actually, I'm not in favor of that. That, of course, is not socialism. However, I have frequently thought that a single-payer plan might be better than what it is that President Clinton is presently proposing. It's so damn complicated and screws everything up. If we're going to do it, we might as well do it with a single-payer plan. On the toll-free line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm calling from Phoenix, Arizona. I'm listening to KFYI.
KFYI. Yes, indeed.
And I'm calling to talk about the card.
Oh, the card.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Is your radio off, sir?
No, it's on.
Would you turn it on, please?
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
The national card.
Yes.
Back to what happened, Nazi Germany had a national card.
Papers, please.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they took and used that to control the people. They used that so that you went here and there, but not over there where you weren't allowed.
You wanna
organ of oppression.
Yeah, you're calling from Phoenix, right?
Yes.
Phoenix is in the great American Southwest, and Phoenix is closer than am I to the Mexican border and greatly affected by illegal immigration. How important is it that we do something about that?
Welcome to the stream.
Illegal immigration. It does hurt the country. Yes. But that is not a reason to start risking the rights of Americans. As Abraham Lincoln said, those who trade rights for security neither have nor deserve either of them.
Right. Exactly right. All right, sir. Well, I take your comment, and I thank you. And it is yet another comment to mention the card business. I don't know a lot of ills that would be controllable with such a card. A lot of crime would be eliminated. A lot of welfare cheating would be eliminated. A lot of cheating the government, period, would be eliminated. Illegal immigration could be taken care of. At least we'd have the right to ask who's an American citizen and who is not. But there would be a trade-off, wouldn't there? There might be more comfort. There might be more security for the average citizen. Even economic security. I mean, you look at California, and they're spending about $3 billion a year on illegal immigrants. That amounts to about 1/10 of the total state budget. They're going broke. They are going broke. They cannot continue to do it. So something's got to be done. Here is a proposal to do it. What do you think about it? So far, kind of a mixed reaction. On the toll-free line, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi there.
How you doing? I'm glad that Angel show thrilled you.
It did, yes.
Oh my! I think that angels are for real.
Do you?
I do. I think that the natural result of fear is destructive.
Would you turn your radio off for me?
I will.
Thank you. Everybody, please do that. When you get on the air, turn your radio off all the way. All right.
Okay, I'll be right back with you.
All right. I'll wait. You don't really have to do that. You have to get the radios turned down, or it will confuse you. It will make you
I'm afraid there's several radios on.
Several?
Several. But anyway, the natural results of fear. So the question is it a hallucination, a fantasy, a hope, etc.?
That's right.
And so, but generally speaking, when we fear things, and our stress usually results in destructive processes. The encounters with angels relieve fear and result in constructive process.
But why would it not be reasonable to assume that it is a protective mechanism of the mind, which is not at that moment looking for negative, but any way in the world out?
The mind physiologically would have to assume that there is no way out. And so once it makes that assumption, it must enter into another dimension of reality. I think that much of the world is like our physical, much of ourselves is like our physical world, where there's all this huge 75% of the ocean and man lives on 25% of land. I think we're 75% spiritual, but we focus so much on our bodies. So we become illegal aliens. They're just people, But I don't know. I'm pretty sure that it's real because of the effect that it has on people's lives. And that when the mind is so convinced of death and destruction, and yet still it results in life and hope, then you have to give it some credence, even if you can't measure it. You can measure it by its result.
Oh, where are you right now?
I'm in Salem, Oregon.
Salem, Oregon. Well, I really appreciate your call and your point of view, and I hope that you are correct.
Well, you can know that you're right, too, because that tingling that went up and down your spine,
yes,
that's the ringing the bell of truth in your heart.
Well, maybe. Maybe. I'm not sure about that. All right, thank you very much for the call. I'm not sure about that. Because I've had similar tinglings when I've seen ghost stories. It is a kind of a thing that occurs in me when you use the street jargon. I'm kind of freaked out a little bit. And it's the familiar tingle of the unknown mixed with a little bit of fear and a lot of other things. So I'm not sure that I agree. And like so many things in my life, I don't know, and so I can't say for sure. I hope that it is true. I hope there are angels. And I suspect there may be, but I'm not positive. But then I guess that's what it's all about, and that's why we investigate areas like this. And that, by the way, is what Greenland on Sunday evenings is all about. We'll be back.
First up is Time Continues with Art Bell. Coast to Coast. Premier Network presents Art Bell, Somewhere in Time. Tonight featuring Coast to Coast AM from May 24th, 1994.
Welcome into the best talk radio in the nighttime, growing like crazy. New affiliates all the time now. I'll be telling you about some more shortly. Welcome at any rate into open line talk radio. We don't screen calls here. We just take them as they come in. And I don't know too many others who do that, but it's a fun way to do it, and I don't know what they're missing. All right. We've got a lot to talk about this morning, and I'll brush you up on it because I know a lot of you are just joining at this hour. And I've got a fax here from Don Berry that I want to read. He says sent me several on this subject, and he's referencing my comments on the cutback of the military, and he says, you did it again, telling a caller that we had cut back on the military drastically. The defense budget has been cut by less than 7%. You keep repeating a lie that drastic and huge cuts in defense have happened. You lie to your audience. You keep doing it, Doc Barry. No, Doc, I have a very different take on it, and I do think that the military has been cut back on drastically. And I have a lot of reasons to believe that, Doc. I think the figure is more like 25% than 7% in terms of budget cutback. In terms of actual cutback in the military, believe me, Doc, we have cut way back. Look at base closures. Look at the early retirements. Look at the people that are just being discharged for the good of the service, or at the convenience of the service. No doubt. I think we have cut back drastically, and I firmly believe that. And I think we're going to find out. I hope we don't find out. But I have a deep fear, and I'm telling you the truth now, that if we get involved in Korea, which I'm afraid is ultimately inevitable, this administration is going to put it off for as long as they can, raising the price ultimately, in my opinion. But when we finally get involved in Korea, somebody's going to open up a second front. Somebody like Saddam Hussein or the Colonel or somebody or another is going to do it. Then we'll find out. There's news this morning that Dr. Koop, the bearded one, and President Carter are getting together to urge the president, to pressure the president. Who knows, maybe they'll even go on a hunger strike, to raise the price of cigarettes $2 a pack. $2 a pack on top of what they already cost. And I got this little letter that I thought was so appropriate from somebody in Seattle, just to note, Art. I hear you on KBI, Hot Talk Seattle. Love it. Call, but can't get through. Thought. They can have my cigarettes when they pry them from my cold, dead lips. Keep it up, Mike number 11. By the way, does anybody have any more news? I went off the air yesterday trying to find out about that disease in England so many of you were telling me about, and I can't find it on CNN. I can't find it on the wire services. I just can't find out anything about it. So, but that's not unusual for this kind of a story, is it? I'll tell you what we're mostly talking about this morning. The news on Denny's, of course, the $46 million Denny's has got to pay to their black customers. The Trade Center sentencing, those 4 terrorists are going away forever and ever. Most favored nation treatment for China. That's been one. You know that fax joke that was going around about the new math test? Well, guess what? A teacher in Chicago gave it to a bunch of 6th graders. Parents are outraged. They're talking about firing the teacher. We're talking about Mexico a little bit. The unrest in Mexico, but mostly we have been taught, and about the card. The card the Clinton administration apparently is considering issuing to everybody in America. One people, one card, and the U.S. Postal Service, as a matter of fact, has made a presentation about distributing the national identity cards. It would stop many ills, illegal immigration, many other problems, fraud of all kinds. It is a card you would use whenever it would be your Fed card. That's right, the Fed card. Maybe that's what they had to call it, the Fed card. Maybe I'm just pointing. It would take care of many things, but a lot of people think it would be the mark of the beast. And so you may want to comment on that. And the show on angels has received all kinds of comment. I saw it on NBC. I hope you did. It was called Angels, the Mysterious Mysteries. And it documented all the way from World War I right on through today. Times when people have been visited by angels. Certainly on the battlefield, in hospital rooms, at accident scenes, to the dying. All kinds of incidents in which angels have intervened. Do you believe it? Or do you think it is the trick of a mind faced with a mortal situation? eminently mortal. I don't know. You tell me. All right, so that's kind of a catch-up on what we've been talking about. Back to the lines. On the wild card line, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, Art. Calling from Bakersfield.
Bakersfield, KNZR, yes.
I wondered if you had a chance to watch Dateline NBC tonight also. Alien abductions.
No, I missed that one.
Oh, it's a shame. It was interesting. Actually, though, I believe 48 Hours pretty much covered this piece. It was like a copycat piece. But I noticed on the Angels that I believe his name is Dr. Raymond Moody.
Right.
I thought that was interesting. You've had him on your show.
Yes, I have.
I wanted to comment mostly on the Denny's incident. I understand that they've settled a lawsuit and everything today, right?
Right.
Well, here in Bakersfield today, our news station put on a segment where an NBC cameraman, actually who I personally know, he's American Indian, I believe, he went into Denny's and he had to prepay for his meal.
Yeah, that's one of the complaints, and some of the people who file complaints and lawsuits will get a piece of that money.
You know what, I can't believe, because there's certain Denny's my husband and I happen to frequent all the time at all hours of the night, and him and I actually have a certain amount of Indian blood in us, and I'm sure a lot of people do. I just can't believe that in this day and age this is going on. It shocks me.
It is shocking. I agree with you. It is shocking. And I too, I kind of wondered, I thought, well, this is an important story, but what angle do I take on it earlier tonight? And what I thought of is, will it ever end? Either in America or worldwide. We've got enough things that divide us already. Why in the hell do we have to be divided by skin color?
I don't know. There's nothing to dislike about people than their skin color.
It's such a waste, god-awful waste of energy and time and productivity, and even arguing about things that really matter. Just a waste.
You bet. I wanted to ask you also, what was your take on the Angels program? How did it make you feel? Because I just tuned in at 12 and I noticed your...
Yeah, I guess my answer would be it left me hopeful. I'm a terrible doubter. I hate to say it, but I am. It left me hopeful. It scared me a couple of times. Not scared me. Put a chill up my spine. Whatever it is that does that. It put a big one right up my spine.
Well, it made me wonder. It just made me wonder. For some reason, I think there's a higher source than the Angels. The Angels, to me, are more like foot soldiers, and they're working for somebody else,
Well, yeah, but, the boss is a big gun.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Bart.
Bye. I don't know. I'm searching my feelings about it. I am so intrigued by it and so pulled to it. That's why we're doing Dreamland. Dreamland is kind of a pet of mine, because these are areas that I'm really struggling with, and I have been for years, and they're areas that are fascinating to me. There must be something after this life. On balance, I believe there is. It's evidence, certainly, that demands a verdict, isn't it? All of these areas, things that we don't know about. Things that we may not know about only because of the great noise level of the day, every day. That doesn't mean they're not there. On the toll-free line, you're on the air. Hi. Hello there. Going once, twice, gone. On the first-time caller line, you're on the air. Good morning.
Art,
Yes.
this is my name is Jerry. I'm from Denver, Colorado. Listen to you on KNUS.
KNUS Denver. Yes. Hi, Jerry.
Yeah. I told make those comments on first the part about the Angels.
Yes.
I really believed the last lady that you just talked to, she spoke about that the Angels are the foot soldiers.
Right.
And I kind of sort of believe along that line that God, I believe in God. I believe in pretty fundamental Bible believing. Believe that God created the angels and below him, and man's created below the angels, and that we are spiritual beings of the body. And
But angels are not the departed.
no, they are not.
Right.
They are. It's kind of like I believe that their spirits are immortal, as are ours.
And yet, sir, a lot of the angels that appear to people come as visions of the departed relatives and so forth.
Yeah, and there's a lot of it to me that is a mystery, as it is with you.
Yes.
But at the same time, I really believe, from just my own digging through the Bible, that there's two forces out there, if you believe like I do. And I'm a real believer in the whole conspiracy theory that there's a battle going on out there. And the Bible says that it's a spiritual battle. It's not something that's fought with our flesh and bones, but it's a spiritual thing that's going on.
Well, I do think that the lady who said that we are much more spiritual than we imagine or know, I think she's right.
Yes, I believe that we are. There's been many studies on how little of our brain power that we actually tap into and use.
Oh, yes.
And, there's a lot of discussion about why that is. And without going into my whole dissertation on that, I really believe that we are spiritual beings. The force that gives us life is very mysterious.
Well, there's two ways to look at it. Either the human mind once used a lot more of its brain and now is actually using less, kind of depressing, or the other way around, that we are progressing, that evolution continues with the hand of God, thank you, and that we will eventually use more and more of our brain. That's a more pleasant one to believe.
That's maybe the more pleasant, but I tend to agree with the first. That at one time, if you believe in a literal translation, that at one time man did have that full use and capacity of his brain.
Well, that's depressing. I mean, that means that we are in effect devolving and not evolving.
But it also means that, how do I say this?
Well, that might be true. As our spiritual selves become less, maybe we are devolving. I mean, here we've got all these young people walking around with blank stares and big guns, right? And people seem to care not very much about life or understand the spiritual aspect of life. And so maybe it's true. Maybe we're devolving.
I don't know if, the word evolve. I think that maybe more and more desensitized over centuries.
Well, all right, but the end result is devolvement.
That's true.
All right, Joe. Thank you very much for the call. It's a good call. And what do the rest of you think? Are we devolving? Is that even a word? Is that a good word, devolve? Are we devolving? From a societal or civilization point of view, I think you could admit that I guess we are. Maybe he's right. Maybe mankind is using less and less of its brain. And we're actually all sort of dumbing down. On the wild card line, you're on the air. Good morning.
Hello, Art from Wichita, Kansas.
Wichita. Yes, and your radio station there is?
KFH 1330.
KFH, yes, sir.
I'd like to talk about angels. I believe in angels myself.
Did you see the program?
I didn't. I missed that program, unfortunately.
2 hour special. It was really good.
Yeah. One thing I might leave with you about that is the Bible says to behold the firmament because it shows the handiwork of God.
Right.
And also, I'd like to talk about the quote-unquote the card.
The card.
Yeah. I don't know if it's specifically necessary to have a card now. I mean, like here in Kansas, they're issuing driver's license to have your Social Security number on.
Well, here it's even a little stranger than that. Everybody objected to Social Security numbers being on driver's licenses in Nevada. So you know what they did? They came up with this formula, and they said, all right, here's your new number. It is not your Social Security number. But there is a mathematical formula, a little addition and subtraction you can do, and when you do it, you get the person's Social Security number.
So either way, you get the number.
That's right, exactly right.
And I've heard through that number you can pretty much find anybody or track them.
Pretty much. In other words, these days, if you've got a job or you've got a loan or you've got financial dealings of any magnitude at all, your Social Security number is registered.
Yeah, it affects us quite a bit. It's kind of scary, some of the things they can do with these numbers.
So then if they already have us by the number, is it really an awful thing if we get another card with another number?
Probably not, but it's still, I think it would make it just that much easier. You know, it would kind of catch some of the people that are out there on the fringes, maybe.
There's no question about it. Thank you, sir, for the call. That's Kansas. Dorothy Country. Wizard of Oz Country. I will always so think of Kansas, and most people do, and I bet it annoys the tar out of the people who live in Kansas. But isn't that what you think of when you think of Kansas? Dorothy clicking her heels. It is neat country. Nice, tall wheat and loose wheat fields. It's very interesting country. On the wild card line, you're on the air.
Good morning, Art Phoenix.
Yes, sir. KFYI.
Yep. Glad that they made that smart choice down here.
Thank you.
That way I don't have to wait until 2 in the morning.
Right.
Anymore.
That's true.
But, I was going to say, you had a caller talking about, first of all, I had a question for you. I heard, I don't know, I've been taking a break from the headlines about, I heard that Colombia legalized drugs.
It did, yes.
Okay, all right. I just want to confirm. Second of all, I heard a caller talking about we shouldn't be worrying about the lower class and the programs and all that. Did I get to hear that right? Section.
Well, in other words, she was complaining about the card, and she was saying, look, why are we always going after the people who might be cheating on welfare or the people at the lower strata, one way or the other, taking advantage of the system when we have all these corporations, according to her, ripping everybody off? Why don't we go after that crime?
Okay, well, instead of not paying your taxes, right, if people are thinking about doing that,
right.
How about, like, fighting the waste? Now, I feel a lot better because just like today, okay, it happened on Friday, but today I took care of the problem. I think I did anyway. I tried to help this woman, okay? She said she had no food, and but she was trying to sell me food stamps. Okay?
Right.
$160 worth of food stamps for $25. Okay?
I see.
I said, I don't do that. That's illegal, and for all I know, it's a federal offense. But and then she says, well, I got some stuff I want to sell, some movies, okay? So I said, fine, I'll buy you, I gotta go, okay? So I said, put on, in other words, make a long story short, she ripped me off, okay? Now, I found out that she's the one, for sure, with proof, that she ripped me off.
Well, let me say this to you. Why would you buy anything from anybody who had
Well, she said she would.
who had first offered you food stamps and proven that she was willing to commit a crime?
Well,
I mean, you could have walked into that one.
Well, maybe I did, but see, I feel sorry for people.
I know.
I've learned my lesson not to help people.
You know what? Let me tell you. Same thing happened to me. I was at a little 7-Eleven in Las Vegas. This lady came in with this terrible story with a child. She said she needed to get back to California. Oh, please, would you help me? Give me some money. I'll send it back to you. I said, okay. I think I gave her $35. And I expected she was with her child on the way to California. Next night, went back to the same place. There she was, hustling somebody with the exact same story.
I feel real bad inside, don't I?
I couldn't believe it.
And I got a whole different outlook on helping people, but what I did was, she had my property, she knew it, her live-in boyfriend, whatever, told me that she had it, and so I reported her to the government, the Section 8 program.
You turned her in.
Yeah.
Vengeance is mine, saith the caller. I've got to run. Thank you, sir. Coming up on the bottom of the hour.
This is the Your Network. That was Art Bell hosting Coast to Coast AM on this Somewhere in Time. Now, who said you got on Hartwell Somewhere in Time. Welcome back to the best talk radio in my time. A couple of faxes, both of them good. So listen to this from Joe at KCMO. Unbelievable. That's Kansas City art. Sci-fi virus. CNN today carried a story of a sci-fi-like E. coli virus that killed 6 people in, I believe, Scotland. Death within 24 hours of contraction. It liquidates 1 inch of muscle or fat per hour. They have been amputating limbs in a futile attempt to stop it. This is even more eerie to me than an atomic war. Is it possible this is ecologically produced or released by accident from one of these experimental labs that really don't exist? Yes, Joe, it's possible. And I have not heard the details of that story, but that's horrifying. So if any of the rest of you can confirm the essential facts of the story I just read you, I would appreciate it, but that sounds pretty frightening. Not with a bang, but with a whimper. And then there is this. Hello, Art. I heard on the radio today that the St. Louis police have initiated a new crime prevention program whereby the officers are doing door-to-door in poor neighborhoods, door-to-door, asking the residents to sign a paper giving them permission to have their homes searched. Ostensibly, the police are searching for guns. It was reported that the people are being told that if they refuse to sign the release allowing their homes to be searched, they should be aware of the fact their names will be on the list and they will be watched. Is this true? I have a lot of listeners in St. Louis, and I want to know if this is true. So there are a couple of more terribly important items for you to comment on. You see, this is going too far. This is going too far as far as I'm concerned. It's one of those things that's on the edge. But I believe that somebody should quickly rule this as unconstitutional if they are really doing it. Why? Because I think there's an element of intimidation involved, and a big element. And I think that's wrong. Sign here. Oh, well, you don't have to. But if you don't sign, well, then obviously we're going to conclude that there is something you have to hide and you're going to be watched. No, that's going too far for my taste. On the toll-free line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
This is Marie calling from Sun Lakes, Arizona.
Marie, turn your radio off.
Okay, I just did.
Thank you.
I have one of those telephones that when you pick up, well, the radio goes off, so I had to go out to the car and get my portable because I couldn't get through for 2 hours.
I see. Well, you made it now. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. I wanted to, am I on the air now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I wanted to make a comment on one of the cigarettes. Don't worry about the $2 tax because this is going to be a boom for the black market. They can go to all of the Indian reservations and other places and just get them for tax-free, so I'm sure they'll deliver some to you.
Well, maybe, but if they do this, I'm sure they're going to have to figure a way to stop the black market from the reservations, aren't they?
Yeah, well, they're not doing it so far. But another comment I wanted to make on the one about the military.
Yes.
Ask the young man about the closing of Oakland Army base there.
Yes.
And Long Beach, Navy Station.
Yes.
Fort Ord, Fort Dix, the Coors.
I know.
The Presidio at Monterey.
I know.
And I understand the Presidio at San Francisco, that Gorbachev has an office there. Is that correct?
That is correct. He has an office in the Presidio, yes.
So in Norton Air Force Base. And now they're spending about $2 million renovating a base in Michigan that is scheduled for closure.
Well, Don Barry insists, that's his name, that it's only a 7% cutback, and I don't believe that at all.
He thinks that I'm intentionally misleading the audience. Thank you very much for the call. That I am lying to you all when I'm suggesting these are severe cutbacks. Well, I believe they are. And I believe that it's easily documented, and the budget has certainly been cut back more than 7%. And if you look at the plan, I think it's in the next 5 years, is it? It was planned to be cut back by 25%. And those are the words of Dick Cheney, who was warning against continuing the process. As I said, early retirements. People separated for the, quote, good of the service, and all kinds of things. So I think that indeed there has been more of a cutback than 7%, and I worry if we become involved. Toll-free line, you're on the air. Hello.
Yeah, I'm calling out of Tucson.
KTUC in Tucson.
Yeah, that's it. Just wanted to bring up a thing. I don't know what you're talking about because you don't come on here for another 20 minutes or so.
Oh.
But anyway, what I was going to get at, we seem to have a problem in the U.S. We got too many people on the right, like yourself, too many people on the left, like myself, who don't want to come to a happy medium, come to the middle. Unfortunately, I voted for Mr. Clinton, and I am a Democrat, and I'm a liberal. And I haven't been real happy with everything he's done so far.
Are you disappointed?
On a lot of the things he's done, yes. I think he's going to make a disastrous mistake in Haiti.
Yeah.
And I'm in the military. Matter of fact, I did the Desert Shield, Desert Storm thing, and Desert Calm, and just got back from Provide Hope. And we sit out here, we're stretching ourselves way too thin. We got leaders in the military right now who want to cut us. We got people in the Senate, both sides, that want to cut the military all to pieces.
I agree.
And we're hurting ourselves.
We do that, in America, sir, we do that every time we get into a period of peace, or generally following a war. As soon as you can forget about what it was like, you begin cutting back, and it's always peace in our time, and I think that same thing is going on right now, and it's dangerous.
It's extremely dangerous, and you have some fringes out here that want to take away all, to me, what it appears to be all of a constitutional right. Then you have other people who want to go so far as to take up arms and first destroy the Constitution by going to Washington, what was it you said the other night, September,
Right.
and, go off the deep end, arresting people or putting them on trial when they have no authority to do this.
Right.
And it's kind of scary. It's getting real scary, and you hear more and more people taking up this thought. And
everybody who would fight our government one way or the other, and the government, in other words, every side in what would amount to a war would claim they're doing it for the Constitution.
Lon, you once took an oath to uphold the Constitution.
That's correct.
I'm presently still abiding by that oath. No matter how screwy some of our leaders may be, I still gotta go with that. In closing, I'd like to say I don't agree with everything you have to say, but I don't agree with a lot of the lunatics like Charlie and some of the other people you have called. I have to say either, but I really enjoy your show, and just wish you came on here when you came on the line. Normally, I hate missing 2 or 3 hours of your show each night.
I understand. Well, give KTUC a call when you can.
All right. Have a good night.
Thank you very much, and good morning. I know. I wish we were on a little earlier in Tucson as well, but all things in good time. You're on the wildcard line. You're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, Art.
Yes, sir.
Bryce, Wichita.
Wichita, yes.
Yeah, the one caller that talked about de-evolution. Yeah.
I was the guy, I think, who brought it up. Or in other words, are we devolving now?
Yeah, I think we are. I think all the major religions, if you study religion at all, teach that. Hinduism talks about the Kali Yuga. We're in the dark age right now. Christianity talks about the end of the world. As far as the
yes.
And Buddhism has the same kind of things. American Indians have the same kind of thing. I think all the traditional religions point to that kind of de-evolution. I don't think evolution's ever been proven. The one thing that people seem to be getting into, the one guy who wrote the book Genesis Revisited,
I mean, we're getting dumber. We're getting less civilized. We're getting less, and that's depressing.
Well, not really. Not really.
I find it so. I would like to think we're beginning to use more brain capacity, that our spirits and our spiritual natures are getting greater and not lesser, and, all the positive stuff.
Well, I don't know. It's like being in a warehouse kind of store tonight and looking at all the manufactured goods and the technology and such. And it was so cheap. It didn't have any meaning. It wasn't made by the technology made it. It wasn't made by I don't know quite how to put it. It didn't have the feel to it. It had a cheap feel to it.
It didn't have the feel of handwork, good, solid American product.
Not even Americans so much as human, There's human spirit behind it. And it's quantity versus quality, And,
well, I tell you, sir, it is, I say to you, it is depressing.
we'll always talk about, beings from other planets and
Yes.
and all this other stuff about Sumerians and we're genetically encoded and all that stuff.
Right.
See, I think the human life gift, I think it's a miracle. And all the religions all agree on this. There's one thing, that the human being is above the angels, above any spiritual beings, and is equal to God as far as within us there's something that's so equal to God or remarkable or a spark of God that is so incredible that I don't believe all that stuff. I think we've been given something that is fantastic.
Well, I don't necessarily believe it nor disbelieve it. I'm trying to figure out what the real truth is. I appreciate your call, though. I better run.
Okay,
All right, take care. I'm trying to figure it all out. And so many of us are, and I don't see how anybody can come to any firm conclusions one way or the other. I mean, either absolute yes or absolute no. How can you do that without absolute proof? I can't. On the wild card line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hi, Art.
Hello.
Taylor Morgan, KEX?
Yes, sir. KEX in Portland.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things. The second one is about Haiti, but if I got time, I'll get to that. But I wanted to ask you, have you heard of this ultimatum resolution yet?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I have a copy.
Oh, okay, good. I was been reading through that. I think that's rather fascinating. In fact, I've got an appointment on this next Wednesday to go talk to my state representative about it. So I'll pass on that tonight then. The guy last week kind of stole my thunder about Haiti. I kind of had the idea that what we needed to do about Haiti is all these gun buybacks that they have here in the States, like they had one here in Portland, all that.
Donate the guns to the Haitians.
Well, why don't they just take all those guns and for each gun give 1,000 rounds of ammunition and send them back?
Do you want to know why I think we won't do it? I really mean this, because I think Bill Clinton doesn't want to be seen giving guns to anybody, not the Bosnians, not the Haitians, not anybody. What he really wants to do is take them away.
Right. Can I? Well, before I go, I wanted to. You know how on some of the movies or stories that you hear about building a supercomputer that actually gets away.
Oh yes.
And it gets so big that it starts thinking for itself.
Yeah. One of the great ones was the Forbin project.
Yeah. Well, I kind of look at our government like that, in the fact that what we got on right now is a race between the government, the big computer, and the creator, the states of America. And the big race is, can the states of America unplug it before it demolishes its creator?
I'm not sure that it's a process that can be reversed. It sounds good, unplug it. But the way civilization is going right now, and the social structure appears to be breaking down, I'm not sure the answer is that there's a way to stop it. Now I'm the one who's dishing out the depression. Thank you very much for the call.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. There are some days when I believe that everything can be pulled out, and frankly, I think there is hope. But there are other days when I see the process as nearly irreversible, and it may not be reversible.
news flash for you, since you've been talking about rotten flesh all night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was the one that called you up and brought it to your attention. This is Reno KOH.
Yes, ma'am.
All night long, at every top of the hour since 12 midnight, been hearing about that they're possibly going to cause Rostenkowski to be determined to become resigned of his own job.
Yes.
And I hadn't heard anybody comment about it.
Well, that's because it hasn't happened yet. Yes, we've been aware of the ongoing dialogue and the fact that he was probably going to have to plead guilty to at least one felony and all the rest of it, but it has still not happened.
Okay. And on Angels, I have a story I know you're not going to believe, but it is true. About 8 months before George Bush got out of office, he was visited by an angel. And my pastor had talked about it across the pulpit after our church affiliation had their general conference. And the first time George Bush saw the angel, he didn't know who it was, and I guess he just kind of thought he was dreaming. He went back to sleep. Then, I don't know how long had passed, but the angel had woke him up again, and he asked him who he was, and he told him that he had a message from him, to him, and that he was an angel and everything, and he told him not to interfere with any plans having to do with Israel, going back, and he immediately got on the phone with our superintendent of our church affiliation, because at that time he was, besides Billy Graham, was the second spiritual advisor for George Bush.
Who did George Bush reportedly tell all this to?
Nathaniel Urshan. He's the general superintendent of the United Pentecostal Church International. And at that time, he was, besides Bill Graham, he was his other personal advisor for spiritual decisions.
Well, that's a remarkable story.
And it's true, if you want to believe it or not, but I just wanted to let you know.
Well, I appreciate the story. It's interesting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
George Bush may have been visited by an angel. Probably came down and whispered in his ear, "George, throw the election. George, throw the election." On the wild card line, you're on the air. Hello.
Radio Free America.
Yes, sir.
Say, Art, I've seen that Grace Commission video. Have you seen that?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, that is some seriously scary stuff.
I know. And so is where our economy is headed. Can you imagine having to shell out $400 billion, in other words, all of our tax money, for the debt?
Yeah, I'm going to pick up that Thicket deal. I urge all your listeners to do the same. Something's going to happen soon.
Yeah.
It's a matter of time.
I know.
Called you to give you some information. This comes from some guy running named Klaus Papolino on the 79th District out here in California.
Yes.
Said some things about Hillary Clinton's deal on firearms, something called AMMP, the alternative, alternative manufacturing program designed for Colt to change them from manufacturing firearms to blue jeans. And also firearms renewal program. That means registration of all firearms per year on paying a certain amount of tax on each weapon to continue to own it.
Yeah.
Also, I was going to tell you, Art, I really do disagree with you about what happened to Beckman. I mean, that's outrageous. He didn't get his day in court after 18 years.
Well, he may yet get his day.
Well, I know, and I'm I'm hoping big time. I'm praying for the guy. I mean, this, the Seventh Amendment guarantees everyone in this country the right on a civil suit of over $20, the right to a jury trial. He was never given that.
Oh, I certainly agree with that aspect.
And
But,
he still got title to that property.
well, I don't know about that. They may have legally taken that, or perhaps there will be a trial about exactly that. I'm sure it's going to go to court.
Oh, boy, I tell you, I hope so, and I hope he gets triple damages for what they've done to him.
All right, sir. Thank you. Well, a lot of it will hang on whether he really illegally withheld paying his income taxes. That's the only aspect of it. I would choose not to do that. I do pay my taxes. And you've got to remember that when somebody doesn't, you end up, or I end up, paying more.
The trip back in time continues with Art Bell, Coast to Coast AM, or somewhere inside of You're listening to Art Bell, somewhere in time. Tonight featuring Coast to Coast AM from May 24th, 1994.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome into the best talk radio in the nighttime. Period. We're right here, wherever that is on your dial, up and down the dial. I like the old WKRP song. Well, there's a lot going on. I guess there's been some sort of encounter near Haiti, shots fired over the bow, that sort of thing. A lot of news we're tracking, and let me just mention a little bit of it. Dr. Koop and President Carter are getting together, trying to urge El Presidente to raise the price of cigarettes by $2 a pack. They think that's just a spiffy idea. So looks like we're going to have that argument again. There is a story about a disease in England that I'm trying desperately to get hold of. Somebody just sent me some instructions on how to resurrect it from America online. And I'm going to try to do that. In the meantime, I received this fax from somebody updating me on that. As a matter of fact, it was Joe in Kansas City at KCMO, and he writes, Art, the sci-fi virus. CNN today carried a story of a sci-fi-like E. coli virus which killed 6 people in, I believe, Scotland. Yeah, within 24 hours of contraction. It liquidates 1 inch of muscle or fat per hour. They have been amputating limbs in a futile attempt to stop it. This is even more eerie to me than an atomic war. Is it possible this is ecologically produced or released by accident from one of these experimental labs that really don't exist? Well, I don't know. But that is, I feel, an important story and one that's being not properly covered. If we've got a new terrible disease going on, I want to know about it. I don't know about you. There are a lot of people, who don't like bad news. If there's bad news, they don't want to hear it. And so maybe you don't want to hear this, but there it is, and I want to know more about it. So if anybody has any additional details or can confirm the main body of that fax, I would appreciate it. And I will go searching for the story on. In the meantime, there was another fax I thought of serious consequence, and I had a reply to it now. Hello, Art. I heard on the radio today that the St. Louis police have initiated a new crime prevention program whereby the officers are going door to door in a poor neighborhood, asking the residents to sign a paper giving them permission to search their homes. Ostensibly, the police are searching for guns. It was reported that people are being told that if they refuse to sign the release allowing their homes to be searched, they should be aware of the fact that their names will be on a list, and they will be, quote, watched, end quote. Sounds like Chicago, doesn't it? And I asked, indeed, is it going on? And I have a friend now who works for News Plus, an organization, news wire service in St. Louis, and he just faxed me this. Dear Mr. Bell, Here is the story regarding your earlier call, actually it was a fax, about police going door to door looking for guns in St. Louis. In response to the large number of shootings involving teenage gunmen, the St. Louis Mobile Reserve Unit is proposing the following. If a juvenile is arrested for an offense involving a gun, police would then go to that person's house and ask his parents for permission to search for other guns the juvenile might have. I don't know about people being put on a list if they refuse to allow the search, as your caller suggested. But apparently this has more to do with getting guns out of the hands of teenage gang members than undermining the Constitution. Thank you, Kevin. That's Kevin at News Plus. And, that sounds reasonable to me, and I don't have a problem with it. In other words, if your son or daughter were caught with a gun, why would it be unreasonable for the police to want to look around in your house and see if that youngster, not you, had more guns? That is reasonable. And sometimes these stories get really blown out of shape. That's very different than simply going door to door randomly, sort of a knock and talk approach, asking to search homes randomly. It's very different. And I, as I said on the air, as I first heard this, I would really object. It's going too far. But as I get the follow-up report, it really isn't going too far, is it? And it really is a good idea, and things really are out of control, aren't they? So I don't think it is unreasonable that the police, after catching a juvenile with a gun, would want to search the home and find out if there are any more. What about you? We're also talking about the Postal Service distributing a national identification card, because that has now been proposed, and I wonder how you feel about it. If it would cut down on illegal immigration, which it would. If it would cut down on government fraud, which it would you accept such a card, or would you basically regard it as the mark of the beast? Then there's Denny's, a $46 million settlement for alleged, or now admitted. Actually, they're paying the $46 million without admitting it, but it was in settlement for alleged discrimination. Wonder how you feel about that. The Trade Center group for them going away forever and ever. Most favored nation trading status for China, yay or nay. Mexico and the discontent down there. Did you hear about the new math test? The big joke that was going around? Well, some teacher, I guess in Chicago, gave the test to a classroom of 6th graders. Not good. And so that teacher may be fired. I think he had good intentions, but the parents have gone absolutely ballistic. And then finally, we're talking about angels because of the 2-hour NBC special on angels that had a big impact on me. I don't know about you if you have to catch it. So that's kind of a roundup of what we're talking about. Pick any topic you'd like to talk about, and come on in. The water's fine. On the wild card line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello, Art.
Hi.
Hi, this is Dave from Collinsville, Illinois, calling with KSD.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that fact in St. Louis. Also, that police roadblocks at Forest Park.
They've got roadblocks.
Yeah, well, they were stopping cars at Forest Park. It's one of the biggest parks in St. Louis.
And what are they doing when they stop the cars?
Searching the vehicle. They find a lot of ammo, guns, and drugs.
Now, see, searching them on what basis?
I guess suspicion.
Based on what? I mean, you really can't just do that. We do have a Fourth Amendment in this country, and you have a right not to be unreasonably searched, so there should be some basis for the search.
Well, you gotta take the good with the bad, because anytime you take your family down to Forest Park, all you see is like drug dealers, like walking up to cars. I can see that, but I don't agree with, illegal entry and breaking into people's homes.
Well, no, but that, from what I'm hearing, that is not what they're doing.
Well, hello, and welcome to the stream.
Blown out of proportion. People are so freaked out about the possibility of somebody's rights being violated that they take these things the wrong way. Now, the way I just read the facts, it sounds reasonable. If you catch a kid with a gun, why would it not be reasonable for an officer to go to the home and try to see if there's any more?
Well, I agree with that. It works both ways. I think they're going to use it against us.
But, you know,
There's some good and there's some bad.
some I guess, yeah, but what I'm saying is some of the community blows this all up out of proportion, and pretty soon we have the police knocking on people's doors randomly, asking to search, and then threatening if they don't get it. Now, that would be horrible. That's true. And that is not, in fact, what's going on, is it?
That's true. The reason I called, I just want to comment on that still. Can't wait to call.
Yeah.
Let's see, what was I going to say? About Hoagland.
Well, hello and welcome to the stream.
Supposed to make an announcement.
Yes.
In some university. Could you just clarify that?
All right, thank you. I forget the time. But yes, Richard Hoagland is going to make an announcement about what he thinks he's found on the dark side of the moon. And he thinks claims he has photographic evidence of it. We are going to be scheduling Richard Hoagland back onto Greenland. He believes that he's found what amounts to a glass skyscraper, several miles high up there. At least that's what I get of it so far, and I could be wrong. But we're going to have him back on Greenland early in July, and I think that would be a good time to have him on. Maybe we'll have him on even before then. But of course, as you know, the big collision occurs in July, and so I want to talk to him about that just before it occurs. Also, big announcement. This Friday night, Saturday morning on the program. Repeating, this coming Friday night, Saturday morning, I'm going to have as my guest Preston Nichols. Preston Nichols is the fellow who co-authored the book, The Montauk Project. Basically, Preston Nichols will pick up where Al Bielek left off. Preston Nichols was also involved in the Philadelphia experiment at the Montauk end. And so, if you've been fascinated by Al Bielek, you're not going to want to miss Preston Nichols coming up this Friday night, Saturday morning. That'll be at 11 o'clock Pacific time. Pretty exciting stuff. Preston Nichols, 11 o'clock Pacific time, this Friday night. Friday night, actually. On the wild card line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hi, Art. This is Greg from Tacoma.
Greg, hi.
Hey, first off, I want to say put my name on that list.
Which list?
The one that's they're going to want to put your name on if they don't let you in to search your house.
Oh, yes.
Right alongside yours, I'm sure.
Yes.
I can enlighten you a little bit on the lecture he's going to be giving on the moon.
All right.
He was on Laura Lee up here Saturday night.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Okay. What he was talking about was a crystalline building,
right,
that reaches 7 miles into the sky.
Right.
And
I believe that he's come up with this based on calculations with regard to reflectivity of some object, rather than a good clear picture of a big old 7 mile high crystal building. Is that correct?
Well, no, I take it more. He's got photographs and proof. He was stating that anybody with the old NASA photos, the ones that they were releasing all over the place like crazy during the moon explorations,
yes,
with the Apollos and whatnot.
Yes.
He was saying with a home computer where you can enhance the picture, you would see these things clearly. And what he said led him there was the
Clementine pictures.
well, not only that, what really led him to searching for something on the moon was what he found on Mars. I didn't quite understand the correlation, but this is what he said. The figures that he was using, you know, how the distance between the city and the face, I think it equaled pi.
Yes, that's correct. A lot of the, what he calls he applies a new kind of math to it.
Right.
And he used those same calculations on pictures on the moon. So it's going to be very interesting to see what he actually has.
Oh, I'm looking forward to hearing everything he's got. In fact, listening to your show has put so many of your guests on my must-read list, and I'm actually going through that book he wrote about Mars right now, and it's absolutely fascinating. Another point was it's on the side of the moon that is always facing us, because technically there is no dark side, because it's like every 2 weeks that side of the moon will be illuminated, but there's basically one side that is always away from us.
Right.
And he says this city is like smack dab in the middle, like where you'd want it to be to look straight down on us.
All right. Well, we'll all know soon. Thank you very much for the call, and we'll be back in On the wild card line, you're on the air. Hello.
Morning, Art. This is Bob from Sacramento.
Hello, Bob.
Listen, boy, you really have to exercise a lot of patience with a lot of these people calling.
Well, it's the job, I guess.
Oh, you have a pretty good job. I called in yesterday and talked about CIA and cocaine.
I remember.
And today, I caught Jerry Brown. And you know who Jerry Brown is.
Yes, I do. He has a talk show.
Yeah, and he devoted 3 days to Haiti and cocaine.
Did he?
Yeah, and this guy has all kind of, he's quoting a lot of people, and there's a lot of books out there with.
Well, I'm sure that Haiti is a drop-off point, a transshipment point for cocaine. I doubt there's any. I don't argue that with you.
He said there's a ton of cocaine coming into America every month.
Well, I'm sure there is.
And I'm thinking that we're not going to do anything about Haiti because that's big money coming into America, and that's a lot of money for a lot of politicians.
Well, I guess I disagree with you, and if that were the case, then we would not have done anything about Panama, based on the same reasoning.
Well, Noriega was into drugs.
Who?
Noriega.
Noriega. Yeah, now Noriega is in jail.
Yeah, right, but we had to do something. That has to be collected.
Well, I know, but if we did something there, why do you conclude we would not do something in Haiti?
Well, if anything happens in Haiti, it'll be a one-day thing like Grenada.
Well,
it'll be for show only.
It better be. It better be a one-day thing. That's what I would say.
I think that there also one other point. I think the Republican conservative movement is an albatross, and Rush Limbaugh is an albatross. I think it's over. I believe we're headed for socialism in a big way.
All right, sir. Thank you very much for the encouraging words. Conservatism is an albatross. Rush Limbaugh is an albatross. I am an albatross. Well, maybe it's the cycle of life. Maybe it is the end of conservatism across the face of the globe. Maybe socialism is streaking in, riding on the back of the peasants, being served up to America in ever-increasing doses. Yeah, might be. Maybe if the story about what's going on in England or wherever it is true, it's all somewhat academic. There's a really depressing thought. On the wild card line, you're on the air. Hello.
Yes, forgive me if other people have called in about this. Did you, on my 9 o'clock news tonight here in Southern California, I heard that Hussein had said that they had used chemical warfare.
No.
Well, this is what was said.
Okay, what I heard is that we are concluding, based on the studies we're doing now, that Saddam did use chemical warfare. That's what I've heard.
Oh, this wasn't exactly the way it came over our news here.
I see. I've not yet heard that Saddam has admitted.
Well, this is what our news said. Now, of course, you can get all kinds of news, as we all know. But if that is the case, then these vets that are having all these terrible illnesses will have something to go on from now on. Because Lord knows they are claiming to have suffered terrible pain.
Yes, I know.
And if it is so, then they should be treated immediately.
Well, I could not agree more. Thank you. And I am going to follow this story closely. I did hear another version of it that U.S. authorities are beginning to conclude that occurred. And it certainly wouldn't surprise me. Saddam, capable of using chemical warfare or biological warfare, not only yes, but hell yes. So it is not a surprise to me. We'll find out. And on the first-time caller line, lo and behold, you're on the air.
Yeah, Craig from Lawton, Oklahoma. Oklahoma, listening to you from KFH out of Wichita, I guess it is.
All right, and where are you? In Lawton, Oklahoma?
Lawton, Oklahoma, yes.
All right, welcome to the program.
Yeah, in reference to the stuff going on up in St. Louis.
Yes.
You know, there is procedures in place, you know, without for the police to be able to go in and get a search warrant. And, you know, they don't have to go in there and intimidate people if that's in fact what's going on. So it seems like what they're doing is maybe, it sounds reasonable, but is in fact unreasonable because, you know, like I say, there's...
Well, why is it not reasonable? In other words, if your son, your 13-year-old, say, is caught with a gun marching down the street, why isn't it reasonable they would check the house to see if there are more guns?
Well, because, you know, why should it make a difference if it's a child or an adult? It still seems to me you need to go to the judge and get a search warrant. Because, you know, I believe the law is that if you're found with a weapon or something like that, they can only do a reasonable search of the general area that you're in. If they want to go to your house, they need to get a search warrant. So why should we deviate from that?
Well, not if you allow them in. In other words, it seems reasonable to me. The police would go to the home and say, look,
right.
You know, your son had a gun. Would you mind if we search? And I suppose...
Well, in that case, I can see that is reasonable. But
well, that is what they're doing.
People are saying no, and then the parents are saying no, and then they're saying they're going to put them on a list. Well, that seems unreasonable to me.
Well, put them on a list to be watched. Again, I don't think it's unreasonable. I'm sorry, but I really don't think so. I mean, they'd be watching the house to see if any more guns come from it.
How can they do that?
Well, I don't know. By posting somebody there to watch. I really don't know. I just, you know, from the way the story first came to me and the reality of the story, there's about 100 miles of difference.
Well, yes.
And I said clearly on the air last hour, some of you would not have heard it, that to me, that would have been way over the line. But this is not.
Well, I agree. You know, that when I first heard the second follow-up fact, I said, well, yeah, that sounds reasonable. Then I started thinking to myself,
Right, sir, I've got to go. We're out of time. We'll be back.
We're listening to Art Bell, Somewhere in Time. Tonight featuring Coast to Coast AM from May 24th, 1984. Three-year network presents Art Bell, Somewhere in Time. Tonight featuring Coast to Coast AM from May 24th, 1994.
By the way, if somebody wants to send me that article on the from AOL, then I can get it on the air this morning. I'm not going to have an opportunity to get online until after I get off the air. So, if one of you has that story, forward it to me by all means. I don't know why yes, I do. Because I have this terrible feeling that something like the stand, not the entire body of the stand, mind you, but that terrible first episode could occur. And so I watch reports of diseases like the one we're hearing about very, very carefully. On the toll-free line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hi, Art. This is Tony from Sacramento, the lawsuit.
Hi, Tony.
Hi, you remember me from last night?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Well, you know, I wanted to tell you, Art, you're no albatross. and you'll probably really appreciate that hearing it from me because I am what you would call a liberal, but I agree with everything that you say.
You do?
I do.
Well, then how can you be a liberal?
Well, because I'm what they call a new Democrat.
Well, so is not Democrat. He claims to be one, too.
No, he's not. You know, he isn't. I don't think he is. I really do. I've heard him now a few times. I mean, I've been listening to your show pretty much every night, and I don't think he is.
The president also claims to be one.
He's definitely not. I'll tell you, a new Democrat. You know, it's interesting. One of the callers who called earlier talked about Jerry Brown.
Yes.
And you know, to speak of him as not as a talk show host, but just as a person.
Right.
I have done volunteer work for him and have met him personally on a couple of occasions. I think that he probably fits the description, which is socially liberal but fiscally conservative. For example, his idea of the flat tax.
Yes.
You know, that's a very conservative idea.
It is. It really is. And I've been a fan of it for a long, long time.
Yeah. So that's what I always define.
I'm I'm also no single thing. There are some, I suppose, not quite liberal, but leaning toward liberal aspects to me at times. And economically, I'm quite conservative. I guess even politically, I'm fairly conservative, but not far right-wing by a long shot.
Well, I agreed with what you were saying with regard to Haiti. I mean, it's something that this other person would call global onia, but the fact that we're going to embargo the Dominican Republic, I think, is only going to hasten the ultimate, climax of things. I mean, the way that things are probably going to turn out anyway.
Yeah, I think that's really stupid. We're going to just ruin another economy that's teetering anyway. If we're going to do this, then we might as well do it. And if we're going to do it, we ought to do it with enough force to do it without getting a lot of people hurt and get it done quickly. Having said that, I'm not in favor of doing it.
Right, exactly. I am not in favor of it either. But the thing is that if it's got to be done, then just do it, and get it done, and do it right, instead of just postponing the inevitable. I mean, but that's not to say that we should do it. I mean, that's just a different question.
It is.
And as far as government goes, I think that we need to support our country because it is our country. At the same time, it is our right, if you want to call it a birthright, it may be an inalienable right, to criticize it, because government is a necessary evil, and we need to limit it. That's our duty as citizens, is to limit our government.
I agree again.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Good to know you're out there.
Well, I hope that makes you a conservative instead of making me a new Democrat. I got to run.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye. So I'm not sure what that means. Maybe it means that people in the middle have a lot in common. I don't know. On the wild card line, you're on the air. Hello.
This is Charlie, liberal in California.
Yes.
First of all, any guy that agrees with everything you say is not a new Democrat. He might be a new Neanderthal, but he's definitely not a new Democrat. There's a difference between Democrats and Republicans.
In your ear, Charlie.
Democrats support the middle class and social involvement of the government. Republicans don't because they're selfish. And if obviously this guy's a right winger trying to pretend to be a Democrat.
I'm not, Charlie, I'm not selfish.
Well, you personally might not be, but let's face it, policy Republicans are selfish.
No, it's not.
Well, we obviously disagree on that, just like you say our policies are socialist.
Well, you call names well. Let me hear you document it. What is selfish about conservative ideology?
Not supporting health care for working people who don't have it, not supporting expanding welfare training. We could go on and on and on for days on that.
Well, we could, but I would say that conservatives are merely not stupid.
No, I would say that they're merely protecting their own. But like I say, we disagree on that. Obviously, that's why you're an extremist, and I'm not. But anyway, let me just say on the gun thing, I do agree with you on the thing in St. Louis. But I honestly don't believe that it's gone far enough. That's what the problem is. When you get situations like that, people are afraid to go out of their houses. You got people shooting randomly. As far as I'm concerned, they live in a state of siege. And when you live in a state of siege, I believe that it has to be rectified by any means necessary. And by any means necessary means just that.
Well, isn't that like saying the end justifies the means,
In
Charlie?
that situation, yes. People don't have freedom anyway. You can't go if you're afraid to go outside your house at 6 o'clock in the evening, and you're basically a prisoner in your own home. You don't have freedom to begin with.
Charlie, I'm curious. Why would you say the end justifies the means here? But when you look at something like support of the Contras and anti-communist activity, then all of a sudden, why the end does not justify the means? Because the means is anti-communist.
Situation, the people would be less free under either one of those governments. They're both scuzz buckets. But I'm saying these people need to be. These people are living in a state of siege in these urban dwellings, and they need to be protected. And I think that's what the law enforcement and government means to do, even if we have to get past the gun owners, gun nuts.
So if that means a virtual police state case around,
I believe that it should be national, to tell you the truth. But again, we probably disagree on that. Lastly, let me say on this, Jennifer, you may not know this, but Jennifer Flowers came out with some tapes that she's selling for $20. And
you mean conversations with the guy who sounds just like Bill Clinton?
Yeah, right. But anyway, let me just let me just say that and it's kind of familiar because I can't recall this, but there was some other extreme lady who came out with some tapes selling them for $20, but I can't remember her name right now. Because Thomas or Thompson or something. But anyway, I think she said something very interesting. She said that Bill Clinton would not sexually harass any female, and I have to. I think Jennifer Flowers would know that better than anyone. But there is a rumor out that Jennifer.
Oh, well, then you mean that you buy into all Jennifer Flowers' story then?
Well, some of it, but like I said, there's a rumor out. Jennifer Flowers apparently is.
Well, then we have a real problem. Which girlfriend do we believe?
Well, Jennifer Flowers apparently is going to get some females together. They're going to go down to Washington with arms, and they're going to take some people hostage.
Oh, goodbye, Charlie. Which one of these gals do we believe? Which gal is like Jennifer Flowers says Bill Clinton would never harass a female, and Paula Jones says she was harassed. So, which girlfriend do you believe, ladies and gentlemen? On the toll-free line, you're on the air. Hello.
Well, hello.
Well, hello.
I didn't expect to get a direct shot in.
Well, then why did you call? Oh, I see. We don't screen calls. We just, we just put you on the air.
Okay. Well, great. I just received a fax from a friend of mine on the Hawaiian legislature has voted, or I think the legislative committee has said that if the national debt gets to $6 trillion, or if the president of the Congress does something to subvert the Congress.
Yes, it is called the ultimatum resolution.
Oh, the ultimatum resolution.
Yes.
Okay. Well, you already have a copy of it then.
I do, yes.
Yeah. You've mentioned the bulletin board system on your program, but I never seem to catch the phone number.
All right, I will give it to you.
Great.
But, so listen on the, where are you, buddy?
Oh, I'm actually between Los Angeles and San Diego, but I get KOGO.
Oh, KOGO. I'll tell you, that station just rages right up the coast.
I love it.
All right, thank you, and listen on the air. All right, I'm going to give you two things. One is, I will give you the bulletin board number, and you can try it. Now, whether it's fully open anymore or not, I don't know. It is area code 702-727-7091. That's area code 702-727-7091. Now, I am also now a member of the internet on America Online. So I have an internet address. And if you wish to send me a message, you may do so on the internet. Simply address it to, and there are no spaces in what I'm going to tell you, no spaces. Send it to Art Bell at the @ Art Bell, no spaces, at AOL.com. That's Art Bell at AOL.com. And you can get an internet message to me in that manner. On the wild card line, you're on the air. Good morning.
Good morning, Art. How are you doing today?
Fine, sir.
You were talking about angels earlier.
Yes, well, you've got a terrible amount of hum on your line.
Oh, I'm sorry. Switch here.
All right.
I got a better speed dial on that one.
Yeah, is that a portable phone?
No, it's just old.
Old. Okay.
Anyway,
me too. I have hum in my body. Just old.
Yeah, I was curious about the angels here. Now that I've switched phones, I wanted to get you this title to this book. I thought you'd be really interested. Let me grab that.
All right. Yeah, happens to you when you get old, like an old phone to get home.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that's all right.
It's called Where Angels Walk.
Yes.
And it's by Joan Webster Anderson.
Right.
And these are true stories about heavenly visitors. And it's a very powerful book. I thought you would maybe be interested in that.
Sounds like one I would be interested in, yes.
Okay.
Did you happen to see the NBC program on angels last night?
Well, actually, I didn't. That's why I called, because I had to work, and I did hear you say, though, that it took you. And I was kind of curious, what about it? I mean, could you tell us anything about it?
Well, it ranged all the way from World War I to present day, and it gave it was a 2-hour special, and it gave example after example of people who have been visited by angels. And without relating each story to you, I just tell you some of them cause the hair on the back of my neck to go straight up.
It sounds a lot like about this book too. Each individual story. So,
well,
I'm really disappointed I missed that.
Yeah, I'm sorry you missed it too. It was very good, really riveting, actually. All right.
Thanks.
Thanks very much for the call. It was very, very good. Did any of the rest of you catch that program? It was an NBC special, 2 hours long, on angels, and it was very, very good. And I guess here's where I would like to stop for a second and note you. Why do you suppose we're beginning to see so many programs about past life regression, about life after death or near-death experiences and UFOs? Why is there so much suddenly in the media about this? This subject that almost nobody until recently would touch. On the first-time caller line, you're on the air.
Hello, Art.
Hello.
Let me turn off my radio.
Thank you. And tell us where you are calling from.
My name is Ron, and I'm calling from Seattle.
Seattle. Okay, good. KBI.
Well, no, actually, I'm actually on KOH.
KOH in Reno?
Yeah, I pick it up all the way here at nighttime.
Why, as a matter of curiosity, when you've got KBI right there?
Because I don't like KBI. They get a little bit too I think anyway. They get a little too arrogant.
Are you familiar with the expression cutting off your nose to spite face?
Yeah.
Well, you're doing that sort of. I mean, you'd have a nice...
Very true.
Well, okay. As
they come in
Welcome to the
as
stream.
you will.
But they keep going on with this hot talk, KBI.
Well, so it is hot talk.
Like they're the greatest thing in the world. I just kind of
they are. Well, all right.
But you got a good point. You're right. So sometimes it's perception. Dreamland I listen to on KBI because I don't want to miss a word of Dreamland. But
well, what kind of miserable double standard is that?
It has no logic to it whatsoever. I did really enjoy Mike Rigby last week.
Yes.
That was one of the better Dreamland things.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
And because I'm a Betty Eating fan.
Yeah, you're not going to want to miss the one, really anything I've got coming up. You know, I've got Preston Nichols coming up.
And you've been talking about him for quite a while now.
That's right. And Tom Van Zandt this coming Sunday, he wrote Dark Matter and Missing Planets. He is a astronomer.
Sounds very interesting. Well, I'll definitely go listen. I never went to Greenland.
Good.
And I would like to compliment you. I'm a first-time caller. You are very patient with your people. That's one of your big selling points, I think, on your show is your personality. You're one of those kind of guys that nobody couldn't like.
Well, I hope that's true, but believe me, it is not true. You should see some of the letters I get.
Yeah, I can believe it. I guess
I read them and I say to myself, nobody could be that bad.
Well, I think maybe too, people oftentimes, just because you don't disagree with somebody doesn't necessarily mean you agree with them, but they interpret it as you agreeing with them.
Well, or the other way around. If they disagree with you violently, politically, then nothing you can do and nothing you can say is right, and they hate your guts. And that's okay. That's all right.
Because I don't agree with absolutely everything you say.
Right.
But a lot of it. But I want to comment on that program on Dateline NBC, and I've read a lot of these type of books and listened to a lot of different Laura Lee show and your show and Dreamland, etc. And heard a lot of different discussions on that. It was very good. I thought it was well done. Patty Duke was a great host for that. As far as the sincerity across. One thing that upsets me though is it seems so unfair. Now, doesn't it seem to you a little bit that God is a little bit politically incorrect?
In what sense?
In the sense that, all right, now here I'm not trying to get myself fit here, but I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I had a car accident 18 years ago. When I was in high school, it left me paralyzed from the waist down. Okay,
right.
I have spent my entire life, every penny I've ever earned, searching for a healing. Okay, trying to get my legs back.
Of course.
Okay, so I've been to doctors in Russia. I've been to the holy sites, Lourdes, France. Guadalupe, Mexico City. I've been to the psychics that show you the chicken livers and all these different things. And I can't find anybody that can help anybody that's that has paraplegia. Now, I can find them that have healed cancer, et cetera, okay? What I'm saying is, where was my angel? This guy calls earlier, has that accident, gets hit by the car, and, he gets let down onto the ground very easily.
Where was your angel?
Where was my angel? Saving me from getting a broken back.
Probably out to lunch.
Yeah, exactly. I got a loser for
I'm going to tell you what the religious folk would say, and I'm sure you've heard it a million times. They would say it's God's will.
Oh, that's a bunch of baloney.
Well, that explains a lot. I mean, when you can't explain it otherwise, it's God's will.
That's precisely why they say it, because that's the only way you can deal with it. And there may be some logic to that, given to Betty Eadie's theory, and then also with what Mike Rigby had to say.
Well, or
maybe I chose this.
Either that, or then there's another possibility, and that is that there is such a thing as reincarnation, and you're serving out what you're meant to be serving out, or try to conquer or fight in this life.
Yeah, but for some reason I can't get my conscious mind to accept that, even though
I'm with you, and if
I entertain it as a theory, and I can say, okay, that's a possibility, but I still can't get my conscious mind to say, okay.
And I wouldn't. If I were you, if I were in your wheelchair, so to speak, I'd be fighting right to the end, trying to do something about it. So
that's exactly what I'm doing. I would hope that maybe if you come across any connections on your Dreamline show, get somebody on there who's an expert on psychic healings and psychic surgery and stuff like that, because I can't, all the research I've done, I've talked to people all over the world, I can't find anybody that's ever been healed of this. I can find cancer patients day and night, even AIDS patients or whatever, cataract, kidney stones, all that kind of stuff. You can find healings with that kind of stuff, but never any with paraplegia or quadriplegia.
All right, I've got to run, but I really appreciate your call. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Right, it was a good call, and what you say to that, man? I know what a lot of people, religious types, would say. They'd say, oh, but you're looking at all the wrong places. That's what they'd say. But you see, I'd be doing just exactly what that man is doing. I'd be fighting to get my legs back, going everywhere, talking to everybody, following whatever story I could up, and doing, fighting right to the end. So you may have comment on what he said. Very interesting. I would follow many of the same roads, despite warnings and pleadings from those who would counsel otherwise. On the toll-free line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello, Art.
Yes.
Art, I'm in Denver, Colorado, and I'm a big fan of yours and listen every week.
Listen, sir, I've got to ask a favor. I picked this up when I had business to do. Can I put you on hold and come back to you?
Of course.
All right, in Denver, stand by, and we'll come back to you. We'll come back to you all. So you will be the first customer after the news at the top of the hour, which I might add is coming up immediately. So, lots and lots to talk about this morning. Angels, police searches, new diseases, trouble in Haiti, and you can tell that one's escalating towards some sort of a crisis, and I think very soon now. So we're going to blockade the Dominican Republic, choke them off too. Great idea.
This is Premier Network. That was Ardell hosting Coast to Coast Mayhem on this Somewhere in Time.
Friday night, actually, at 11 o'clock Pacific time. We'll have Preston Nichols here. Preston Nichols of the Montauk Project, or the Philadelphia Experiment, Part 2. You're not going to want to miss that. 11 o'clock. If your radio station doesn't yet carry the program at 11, you might make a polite, discreet inquiry and see if they're going to be able to do so. Going back now quickly to a gentleman in Denver, and then I've got a couple of hot faxes here for you. See, hot talk. A lot of stations calling it hot talk these days. These are hot faxes. We'll get to them in just a moment. In Denver, you're on the air. Thank you for waiting, sir.
Good morning again. Thank you for holding on, Art.
Yes, sir.
Your sister station here, Nichols makes a lot of appearances here. I don't know whether you're aware of that, on one of the talk shows here. And I did a little unofficial dating to you last week when Larry appeared.
Did you?
I called up and I said, Larry, I don't know whether you're aware of it, but there's a nationwide talk show, the Art Bell Show out of Las Vegas.
Yes.
And Mr. Bell has mentioned several times that your reps have contacted him and said that, very much like an appearance, that Larry would appear on the Art Bell Show.
Yeah.
And then along about that time, Art Bell mentioned, but you understand that if Mr. Nichols appears on my program, I'm going to ask him the hard questions.
Yes.
And Larry appeared genuinely a bit perplexed by this. He said,
it's getting to the point where he's been perplexed about this almost too many times, because I've had other people call who have done exactly what you've done. I don't understand why he continues to be perplexed.
Well, Art, he's going to appear again, I think next Thursday he's slated to appear. He's still making that prediction that Clinton will be out by May 30th or June 1st. And,
it's getting a little close.
It certainly is. And, they're wagering at the station here about, the date and hour. So it's an interesting story. I'm a bit frustrated, and I'm sure you are too, Art.
Thank you.
Thank you, Art.
Take care. Frustrated is the right word. Now, maybe it is a massive coincidence, but I have 5 times, no less than 5 times, heard from his people. I even talked to Larry Nichols' lawyer in Little Rock. He had heard the same thing, and he called me and I said the same thing to him. I said, Joe, sure, I'd love to have him on. I've got some hard questions, but I have some hard questions. In other words, I want some proof laid out. And that doesn't mean that I'm not going to go ripping the guy apart. I just want to ask some hard questions, and I don't see why he shouldn't be willing to submit to them. These are serious, damned allegations he's making about this president, literally of murder, drug dealing, and so forth and so on. So I don't see what's so scary about hard questions. I'm not going to crucify the guy. I'm just going to ask hard questions. That's all. So at least I have a dozen contacts now, and still no action. I remain open. Here's a fact I got. Hi, Art. Been listening to you for about 6 months and really enjoy the program. I've become very aware of things going on that I was in the dark about. Felt the need to tell you I take great offense at your comments about stupid answering services, or answering services, and talking to a real human being tonight, rather than an answering service. I spent 25 years with Ma Bell as one of those long-distance operators. I've worked for, and then she names the answering service, for 10 years. And I'm a human being. B-E-A-N, she spells it. And I'm not stupid. I've worked night shift the whole time, and I'm extremely protective of our clients and their customers. So, my friend, don't judge all by some. Keep up the good work, Maggie. In Montana Maggie. Well, Maggie, of course I didn't mean that you were stupid. When I said stupid answering services, I sort of stand by that. They're not stupid, but they're also not salespeople, and they're not ever going to be, Maggie. And so what I guess I'm saying is this man, who has decided to instead get up in the middle of the night, answer the calls himself, and sell his own product, is a wise dude. Because it's very difficult for an answering service with a script to properly sell a product and answer questions. And I've experienced many times the same thing. You call an answering service about a product and you ask them a question. They say, I'm sorry, sir, I don't know. I take orders. And, I take orders. Do you want to place your order? Well, yeah, but how about this? Well, I'm sorry, I don't know about that. You can call back during the day. And so, from that perspective, I'm in it, Maggie. Certainly not the yours. Besides, I like operators. I talk to operators, long-distance operators especially. You ever try to engage an operator in conversation they're not supposed to, but they do. And I have the sense they're thankful. That's right, somebody treating them as a human being. B-E-A-M, Maggie, human being. So there you have that. On the toll-free line, you're on the air. Hello. Good morning.
I'm calling from Phoenix, Arizona.
Yes, sir.
One of our local talk jocks on KFYI.
Do not call them talk jocks.
Talk host.
Thank you.
I guess that's a pickup from, I'm so used to hearing Howard Stern referred to as a shock jock.
Well, he is.
At any rate, the local gentleman who was really investigating a lot of the background regarding Linda Thompson had a guest on just before he was let go. And I cannot remember the name of the guest, but he published a thing that he called white papers, and I guess they were very voluminous, very scholarly pieces, like, and if you cut away from when you paid $25 for it.
Yes.
But this gentleman was investigating a lot of the, I guess you'd say, the allegations made by Linda Thompson regarding the Waco debacle.
Right.
I got the strong impression from the gentleman that he, although he agreed with her that the government is quite heavy-handed in many cases, and that he was grateful for her work in the Big Lie video, he also pointed out the fact that whenever anybody, particularly anybody who's sympathetic with Linda Thompson's aims as far as being anti-big government, anti-tyranny, would point out technical flaws, most notably the supposed flame shooting out of the tank turret.
Yes.
That right away, Linda would not. I mean, she'd freeze up. You know, she would accuse these people of being CIA plants or being government sympathizers. People all the way up to like Lloyd Rice, I guess, applauded her work, but whenever
yeah, they've had a feud going for a while now.
I was wondering if you'd ever carry. I very rarely get an opportunity to listen to you at length, and I was wondering if you ever had anybody along those lines that would have honest, legitimate criticism, maybe about technical aspects of her work, not necessarily antagonistic towards her perspective, but.
Well, yes, I've had a number of people on in that category. Quite a number, actually.
I see. Is there anybody, particular names that come to mind? Anybody that
well, yeah, sure. There was the talk host down in Dallas that I had on not long ago. He was on for several hours, and
I think I caught the tail end of that show. It was right after you had Miss Thompson on.
I had Agent X on with Linda Thompson in debate. Did you hear that?
No, I didn't hear it. I heard it advertised. I was not able to hear it.
I see. So we've done quite a little bit in that regard. I had a Branch Davidian on about a week ago, or was it two? Time runs by.
No, my brother just told me about that tonight.
So there are. See, you really knew all the answers. You just missed the program.
Yeah. Do you ever seem to have anything similar, along a similar vein in the future? That
I look. You can't tell what's going to happen. Sure, I may. I've got to run, sir. Thank you. We will continue to follow the story. Believe me, we're going to follow the story. It's an important story now, and we will stick with it as things develop. We'll have to see what happens. Here's yet another fact that's important, I think. This is from Reuters News in London. The Streptococcus bacterium, which has killed 6 people in Britain this year by literally dissolving their fat in flesh, has a long and deadly history. In the 19th century, it caused a form of child bed fever that claimed mothers by the thousands, and other forms have caused epidemics of scarlet and rheumatic fever. Streptococcus type A caused the, quote, galloping pneumonia, end quote, that killed Muppets creator Jim Henson in 1990. The form he died of did not cause the problem that kills tissue at the rate of 1 inch an hour. Instead, bacteria spread rapidly through his body, overwhelming his immune system. Streptococcus can also infect wounds, causing gangrene. It exists naturally in about 10% of people. usually staying harmlessly at the back of the throat. It most usually causes an easily treated sore throat, commonly known as strep throat. Doctors at first thought the British version had itself been attacked by a virus, but said on Tuesday now they've ruled that out. An epidemiologist at the U.S. Center for Disease Control in Atlanta said it is well known that among the symptoms of infection by Group A streptococcus that causes strep throat is a condition that rapidly eats through fat and muscle. They say it is not a new mutation. This is not something that is untreatable, according to Dr. Benjamin Schwartz of the CDC. Antibiotics, penicillin is the treatment of choice. Well, maybe. But these people are dying within 24 hours. That would seem a bit speedier than normal. On the wild card line, you're on the air. Hello.
Yeah, hi, good morning. Alaska here, KNI.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on the Denny's thing first of all, the discrimination.
Yes.
I think maybe Denny's now will straighten up their act and treat people a little bit more equally. It doesn't matter what color you are; everybody should be treated the same when you walk in.
I think so. Yes. I mean, there might be some conditions under which you would reach a judgment about somebody based on old raggedy clothes and the street look and all the rest of it. You might ask them to pay first no matter what their color. But a policy that allows that is too easily twisted into one that discriminates.
That's very true, and if you have that problem, then maybe you should shut your doors and move your Denny's restaurant to another location.
Yeah, basically, I agree with that.
And also on the Denny's thing, I think that the only way you really can talk to companies like this is to hit them in the pocket, and because the only thing they really look at is the bottom line or the profit in it, and if you hit them there, then that's what they recognize. I wanted to ask you, how does it feel to be a new Democrat?
Well, I don't concede that our agreement in those areas makes me one. I rather would like to believe it makes him a conservative.
Oh, I see. So I guess maybe Charlie's a new liberal.
Oh, well, Charlie's not even in the same dimensions.
That's true. And the guy last night, he said he was driving along and he saw people talking. They were in their car and they were talking to themselves.
Yes, that's right.
Maybe they're listening to the radio and they're singing, for Pete's sakes. I do that sometimes myself.
In some cases, certainly that is true, but I must say that I've seen a lot of people talking to themselves, even arguing apparently with themselves, nowhere near a radio.
I think a lot of those are probably men, and they're probably waiting until they get home with their wife and they're trying to see how the argument's going to go.
Yeah, well, there is that possibility too. Thank you.
One more thing. The Gold Rose Company, hello?
Yes.
I did order one of your gold roses, the Hollywood Elite. I want to tell you it went over really well with my wife, and I want to thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome. It is everything we say it is.
Yes, it was. It was excellent. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for the call. I want to read the rest of this to you, or some more of it. There have been 10 to 12 suspected cases of the flesh-eating version of the infection since the beginning of the year. Now, here's where they give you the common talk. Quote, clusters, that's what they call this, a cluster. Clusters have been reported from elsewhere in the world literature. It is an unusual event, but not unique. That's according to Christine Murphy of the British government's Public Health Laboratory Service. The agency added in a statement, quote, public anxiety should be allayed by the fact that we have examined all indicators of streptococcal infection in the country, and these are demonstrating no change in either numbers of patterns of infection, it said. Patients are treated with antibiotics, but the dead flesh must be surgically removed. This was, I think, pulled off AOL or someplace or another, and sent to me by Dan, listening at WLIP in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Well, that's a nice statement. Does it relax you? Gee, I didn't know there were flesh-eating bacteria calmed by the fact that why they say this is not unusual. We've had clusters of flesh-eating infections before. Well, I didn't know that. Did you? On the wild card line, you're on the air. Hello.
Good morning, Art Bell.
Good morning.
This is Leonard.
Late Leonard.
You had a call from somebody this evening that agreed with you on most everything else except health care.
Yes, that's good.
The trouble is, this health care thing is it's wanted in it's wishful thinking. It's what they dream it is, and it isn't what it is at all. It's like a wolf in sheep's clothing. They see the sheep's clothing, but they don't see the wolf.
That's right.
When I was a boy, I read a book called Looking Backward by Edward Bellamy. Did you ever read that book?
No.
Well, it's one you should read. It's a wonderful story about a utopia that came about by everybody reverting to socialism, and everybody worked together as socialism, and they had utopia on Earth. It's a beautiful story, but the only thing wrong with it is it doesn't take into account the human nature, the fallen nature of man. And if we were angels, we could have a utopia on Earth, but we are not angels, and that's the result.
I share that view, basically. That's right.
This health care plan is the reason for it is the abolition of private property, the power to destroy, and the excuse for it is the health care plan. Health care would be fine, but the power to destroy us, this thing is there's an attorney that's gone through that health care program with fine-tooth comb, and you ought to see what he's dug out of it.
I have.
You know about that $5,000 penalty?
Yes.
That's what's going to kill us.
Well, you're referring to the president's plan. The president's plan is not going to be the one that we're going to get. I don't know what we're going to get just yet, Leonard, but it's not going to be the president's plan as submitted. That's clear.
Well, what we're going to get is they're going to have an add-on plan that'll just keep adding on and adding on and adding on, and pretty soon we'll have the whole thing.
I agree, and that's why I said, of course, I'm not for it, but I actually might be for the single-payer plan more than I would be for some version of the president's plan. I think it would be a disaster. Thank you very much for the call. That's a good call, Leonard. One of the best calls you've ever made, actually. On the toll-free line, you're on the air. Hello.
Yes, sir. Hi, Art. How are you? Art, a couple of things. Always enjoy your program. I'm calling you from Seattle, but listening to you on KGO. A couple of comments.
No.
Pardon?
No, you're not listening to me on KGO.
I certainly am. In fact, I'm also listening to you on one of those nice little television portable...
well, that's great, but we're not on KGO.
I thought that's what it said. But
well, no, that's where Brother Ray serves.
Well, anyway, I want to talk about the liberal and conservative. A great amount of sophistication kind of put the conservative in the socially irresponsible category.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I really do. And in fact, I even had things like Mr. Nixon and things that were recently went up in the political collection of the Smithsonian that I created for him several years ago. But that's my honest opinion there. Another thing,
wait a minute.
Yes.
I have a break here at the bottom of the hour, and I cannot resist exploring the social irresponsibility further. So I will hold you over. Can I do that?
By all means, sir.
All right, stay right there. We will be back.
This is Premier Network. That was Art Bell hosting Coast to Coast AM on this Somewhere in Time. Art Bell, Somewhere in Time. Tonight featuring Coast to Coast AM from May 24th.
Also, once again, here is the caller who is just about to provide us with evidence of the social irresponsibility of conservatives. And we got to the bottom of the hour. And so here you are, back on the air again, sir. And that evidence?
Well, I've lived all over this planet. I've worked in the same industry that you're in.
of the people, by the people, and for the people. I believe that that's a basic premise of the United States of America, which I love very dearly. Back then, something of a flag waver. I've been endorsed for my defense of the American flag.
All right, well, let's even throw in motherhood and apple pie together with it. And now let's see what you mean by socially irresponsible.
Well, yes. I'm calling you from Seattle. Now I've switched over my little radio that I got from your company back there, that little port of Mission.
Steve Crane.
57, I'm on 570 KFI now.
KBI.
Let's talk about children. You know, I was walking down the street here in Seattle, which is one of the finest cities in the United States of America.
Yes.
And I saw deprived children. And here in Seattle, we have a tendency, I think so, more so than most communities in the United States of America, to take care of the disadvantaged. But we are losing our touch in the United States of serving the needs of our people. Children. My children were, when I was in the United States Air Force, Armed Forces Radio and Television Service, back in the 50s in Europe, I was living in England. I certainly covered, by the health plan we had in the military, but as an alien, we were also covered by the British Health Service. And it opened up my eyes. It was a delight to have the milkman deliver cod liver oil, milk, and things that we just don't do in the United States of America. I've lived in Germany. I have lived in Sweden. I've worked, for all of them.
All right, we already went over this. I still don't quite understand how it is you're suggesting conservatives are as you suggest they are.
All right, let me give you a real good one.
I mean, for example, before you give me a good one, you've given me a lot here. Let me give you one thing to chew on.
Yes, sir.
During the Reagan years, for example,
yes, sir.
Funding increased greatly to help children, contrary to what people have said in the past. I mean, it actually increased. So,
but I disagree with that very strongly.
You may, yes.
Yes, sir. Now, Mr. Reagan, let's start with when he was elected the governor of California. One of the first things that gentleman did that affected my children,
yes,
that affected anybody's children, was cut funds for children in school. And so if kindergarten art, if you take a pencil away from youngsters, cut their funding, that hurts our nation. Let me give you another one.
Well, all right, there's not going to be time. Thank you very much for the call. But in fact, during the Reagan years, the general funding that was available for children increased, did not decrease. As did, by the way, most of our social spending. Does that surprise you to hear? Go back and actually check into it. Check into the totality of the record. Not just one specific school lunch thing or anything else. Check into the totality of the record regarding spending for our children during those years. Wildfire Line, you're on the air. Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening. Yes, sir.
I have a comment on Libby Thompson and her statement, some of the things that people have been mentioning, including your caller here a little while ago, about some of the technical aspects of it, especially the part of where the track vehicle backs out of the building and there's a supposed flame there, which has also been called a reflection or a bit of camera flare.
Or a piece of drywall or wallboard hanging from it, yes.
Right, well, I have access to an ADO 2000, I don't know if you know what that is. It's a digital video effects unit.
Yes.
And I expanded it in there, and it's exactly what Linda says, that it's fire. And you can see smoke, you can see the flame.
Well, it may well be fire, but what we're being told is that if you view the rest of the film, Linda cuts it at that point. She cuts it, and there's about a 40-minute jump, I'm told, to the next scene, which is the building enveloped in fire. Now, if you continue with the tank backing out, I'm told by a lot of people who seem to know
flame-throwing tank.
Oh, well, but that was the charm.
Well, I'm saying that there is fire there.
Yes.
There is smoke there.
Yes.
And as you look at it, you don't...
That, sir, is not in dispute.
Well, the thing is that when you expand it and look at it, you don't see anything stuck there.
Well, that's because you don't have enough of the film to keep watching.
Well, I would think that you would still see something there because you can see the flame kind of curl under the tank at that point.
Yeah, not necessarily, sir. If that wallboard was on fire, then you would see the fire. It would appear as fire, and it did appear as fire.
Well, I know, but there's enough of the video there that as I watched it, you can watch the flame kind of curl back underneath the tank, and you don't see anything else burning at that point. It kind of dissipates at that point, and that's just before she does cut away from it. And now I'm not saying anything about her editing or anything like that because I can't, without having seen all the footage that was available for her to be utilizing for that.
Of course,
I can't question that aspect of it. But
I think that arguing about this one scene is not really productive. I think that the overall tape that she had was devastating. I think that what happened at Waco was devastating, and I'm sorry there's a great dispute about this one scene because...
Right. Well, can I make a suggestion for yourself and anybody else out there who is listening that has the tape, is that I'm sure for you yourself, being in broadcasting as many years as you have, you probably know somebody who works at a TV station or a production facility, and if there's anybody out there who would like to call their local TV stations or whatever and see if they can go down and take a look at it for themselves, it might, at least for themselves,
I want to see this
give them an idea of what's there.
All right, sir, thank you. I want to see the rest of the tape. That's what I want to see. I want to get a copy of the rest of the tape. And so if it exists and if the wallboard is clearly hanging on the tank as it pulls back, I want a copy of that, and then I will comment. On the first-time caller line, you're on the air. Hello.
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 Hi, this is Dave, Kodiak, Alaska.
Kodiak, Alaska. Hi, Dave.
Hi, I tore open the Revelation seals in 1989, and I'd like to tell you where they are. They're in the San Bernardino Main Branch Library, San Bernardino, California. They're in the Old Testament in art and the New Testament in art. And
wait a minute, you're saying you tore open the seals? All seven seals? All seven of them?
Yes, I took. Yes.
And
my right index finger.
Yes, and you where did you find them?
They're at the San Bernardino Main Branch Library.
You mean you actually
in art?
You actually found them there?
Yes, the Holy Spirit guided me to the seals, and Psalm 89:19 was 1989, and the event happened.
And you and then you left them there?
They're there, and you can tell which pages were sealed because the tears will fit together like puzzle pieces. Yeah, they're there.
You're not. I bet you're trying to cause trouble for that library.
No, I'm not. No. The thing that was going on with Waco.
Wait a minute. Hold it. Why would you call and tell me something like this?
To let you know that the Word of God is active and it's happening, and the seals are mentioned in Revelation chapter 5, and within one of the seals that I tore open, it says, after a long course history of misunderstanding and stagnant puzzles in religion, the truth of truths and the mystery of mysteries is revealed. I found something about a hidden birth. I went through the light numerology of the scriptures, and it just so happens it fits my birthday, which is 3/15/1959. I tore open the seals when I was 30 years old, and I've been considering it since 1989 and it fits.
All right, sir. I appreciate your call. I don't know how to react. Kodiak Island, Alaska. Why would he come and say that? Intriguing. majority I've heard of it. Every time I think I've heard it all, I quickly realize I have not. So I don't know how to take what we just heard. You make your own analysis. But I'll tell you what's in Kodiak, I can tell. On the wild card line, you're on the air.
Good morning, Art. It's Dan in San Diego, and the gentleman that likes so much listening to you on Hot Talk Pogo.
Yes. That was a strange call, wasn't it?
That one, Art, as you're getting a veritable plethora of strange calls.
You really am. It's a full moon,
I was going to say, is it still full from last night?
It is, but that doesn't diminish the fascinating aspect of a lot of the calls.
No, absolutely not. You didn't even ask for aliens to call in or anything like that.
No, I didn't even open an alien.
No.
I'm getting people who've been, I don't want to say touched, but people who perhaps have been touched by the hand of God or somebody else.
Or touched with someone, or they used to say touched.
Touched, yeah. Touched.
Well, I called about you. You proposed a question after your program. I don't know if it has been addressed or not about our president extending most favored nation status
to China. Yes.
Yes. And I think this is going to be a question of he's going to do the right thing for long reason.
That's probably correct. Yes.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bitter pill, though, considering the criticisms he made of George Bush.
Well, that's still in keeping with his agenda. I mean, he did that. He criticized George Bush about his Haiti policy.
Oh, yes?
He's developing a whole wonderful Haiti policy there.
Yeah, they must have a policy. There is no retreat too great.
Art, I waited for that. Take me off the air. I need to speak to you off the air. I'll hold on my dime. It's very important.
It is.
Yes, very, very important. Tell me what you have. I'll wait for a break.
All right. I'll put you on hold. Stand by. And let's see. Can I create the break? Why, yes, I can. I can actually create a break right now. So let me do that and take care of business and get that line clear. We'll be right back. On the toll-free line, you're on the air. Hello.
Yes, sir. I'm calling from Washington.
Yes, sir.
Mount Rainier, Washington. And I was calling to say, in regard to angels, and I am actually an angel. I believe I am. And
why do you? Wait a minute. Why do you believe? I can't let that go by. Why do you believe you're an angel?
Well, okay, let's put it as what you would say, a Holy Spirit.
Why do you think you're a Holy Spirit?
Well, because I believe I am. I've had too many experiences in my life to prove that I am.
Like what?
Like death. I've had a death experience before, and during my death experience, I experienced the word. I wasn't religious until this happened, and it's not really religion. It's fact. I know I dropped dead, and I heard my mind, my spirit, or whatever it was, take off at a speed of sound that was unbelievable. I experienced the word like thousands of words at one time. It's like reading an encyclopedia.
Sir, how did you die?
I was with some friends, and we were talking, and I turned to talk to one of my friends, and the next thing I knew, I was out. I was blacked out. But what only thing I want to relate to you about what happened is that the word love came up, and it came up in the letter L, and then there was seemed like 1,000 words between that and then the letter O, and then the letter V, and then the letter E, and I was standing up straight with my arms stretched out like in the position of a cross. And anyway, I was changed after that. I was a totally changed person.
Were you high?
No, I wasn't high.
Were you drunk?
No, I wasn't drunk.
Were you impaired in any way?
No, I wasn't. This was an absolute natural experience. I was high on the fact that
I was a very kind of a punk. I would spit on a retarded person. I would be the worst person you could ever imagine behind my friend's back.
That's pretty bad. You would spit on a retired person.
Retarded.
Oh, that's even worse.
Yeah, but anyway, what I'm saying is that now that you see, Jesus and Mary and God aren't the only ones who have Holy Spirit. We all have Holy Spirit. I'm sure I've heard the speed of thought of what that word was conducted to me, and I had no control over it. It wasn't human power that brought me back to life. Yeah, but anyway, you're gonna
who verified you died?
Myself. And my friend just said that I was flopping around on the floor like in convulsions, and I would say it was death because at that point I stopped all human thought.
All right. Well, I've really got to run along, but I'm beginning to see some holes in this story. You see a few holes there, flopping around on the floor. There was no doctor in attendance. I'm not saying people don't flop after they're dead, but for the most part they do. For the most part they're dead. So it may have been that you did not clinically expire. Maybe that in your own mind you died. And I'm not fully disputing your story. I'm just saying that as it went on there, I began to see a few holes developing. Stay on the wild card line. You're on the air. Hello.
Hello, Art.
Hello.
Lulu here.
Yes, sir.
And I want to talk to you about gold. You've been asking somebody to tell you about gold.
Gold, yeah.
I know you love it, but I'm telling you myself, I'm a jeweler.
Yes.
So I live with the stuff daily.
So you're not so entranced with it, huh?
Well, after you get over the initial beauty of it, and once you live with her for a long time, you get to know her very well.
And then pretty soon you take her for granted.
Well, besides that.
Well, then, after a while, what happens when you do that is she'll just walk right out.
Well, I have my series about gold.
Yes.
Which, it might go in line with today's call. Kind of, the lunatics are out tonight, I noticed.
Well, are you lumping yourself in?
Yeah, might. But let me tell you a little story about gold real fast.
Real fast. Yeah.
Anyway, I believe there are gold gods who, in my job, I get cut, burned a lot.
Bad gold.
And listen.
Bad gold.
And I believe that these gods require tribute from jewelers who make their living from gold.
From gold?
Yes, and luckily these gods are in wholesale, so they don't take it all at once. Just take little pain at a time, just over a long period of time.
All right. Goodbye, I must go.
Stick to tune a bit, Art. Stick to tune a bit.
Yes. All right, goodbye. That was great. All right, that's it. I'm off to the world of shortwave, and I will put an appearance on 3890 or 92. There was a vicious virus of a signal on there last night. It was hard to hear anything, so I'll crank up the shortwave rig and go on 3.892, say, lower sideband, or first clear near that. Thank you all. It's another wonderful session of Talk Radio, and we'll do this tomorrow at whatever time we normally join you. Take care.
I don't know for sure, but that was the Mandela incident, and that occurred in the same year as the Aztec recovery.
How many bodies totally do you think they've recovered?
From between 50
50 to 100, representing at least 5 different civilizations. They're all on cryogenic storage. One of the interesting things here is in 1972, the only civilian that I know that ever got to see the bodies was Jackie Gleason, and he was a very big supporter of Nixon's, and they were out playing golf down there in Miami in 1972, and Jackie Gleason, as not many people know, was one of the, he had a tremendous interest in flying saucers, and he had one of the biggest civilian collections of books and memorabilia and pictures and stuff like that.
No, I didn't know that.
In upstate New York, his house was built in the shape of a saucer, and he called it the mothership.
Oh.
Anyway, in conversation with Nixon, he said, was a chance of getting to see the bodies, and Nixon said, yeah, sure. They finished their golf game, they went over and got in the presidential helicopter, and they went to Homestead Air Force Base, which was right near the where they were playing, and golf, and he was showing the bodies. And the reason we know this story is...
All right, John, hold it right there. We're at the bottom of the hour, and we'll be right back.
City Control here again. The reference in that conversation was bogey. It was Marvin who reported sighting the bogey. This is City Control Houston at 4 hours, 24 minutes into the flight.
And this is Coast to Coast AM control at about 35 minutes into the flight. And the flight this morning is with John Lear, son of Bill Lear, jet pilot, aviator for just about all his adult life, and very much a believer in UFOs, or John would call them, I believe, IFOs, identified flying objects, because he says he knows exactly what they are. So that's what we're going to be doing this morning. Hope you'll join us. I do want to issue one brief and severe warning. Some of the material that we will be getting to this morning will be deeply disturbing to some people out there. And so if you're the kind of person disturbed by this sort of material, my best advice at this point is to tune out. Rarely do I offer that up, but I do know that a lot of people are disturbed by this. We've not yet hit on any of that material, but we're going to. So if it bothers you, go play cards or something. Right back in just a moment with John Lear. Back now to John Lear. John.
Yeah.
John, you were talking about Jackie Gleason and said that Richard Nixon took him from a golf course to go see the aliens?
Right, at Homestead Air Force Base. And the reason we know this is his second wife wrote a book describing the incident, how he came home that night, and he was all pale, and she said, my God, what's the matter? And he said, well, give me a drink and I'll tell you. So she got him a drink, and he sat down. He said, the most interesting thing happened to me today, and he went on to relate the incident about how he had seen the bodies. And this book was never published, but in the manuscript, this is how it was.
Wow. And so he actually got to see the bodies at Homestead?
Homestead Air Force Base, right. So that was one of the places that they had the cryogenic storage and display for people who were authorized to see the displays, like certain world leaders, certain political people.
Are they still there now?
I don't know.
Well, surely we do still have bodies, don't we?
Certainly. We still have them all.
And no idea where they might be.
No.
I have heard some rumors lately, John, that there might be some bodies here in Nevada somewhere. Not, Area 51-ish, but somewhere else here in Nevada. Have you heard that?
Could very well be. There's a lot of things here in Nevada. And
right. There are so many incidents we could talk about. There was one recovery, I guess, in 1950 in Mexico, across from Del Rio. Is that right?
Right, crashed about 30 miles across the border, and we went over and actually dragged it 30 miles to Del Rio. And up until maybe 10 or 15 years ago, people that had researched that incident said you could still see the drag marks of where they had pulled it across.
Wow. And I've heard about this before, John. In Washington, D.C., it is true then that for a couple of weekends in a row, back in 1952, they actually had flying saucers over Washington, D.C. They were photographed by the press?
Yeah, they were photographed, and they saw them both on FAA radar and Air Force radar. As a matter of fact, you could go down to the library and pull out those weekend editions, I think, of the Washington Post, and there's stories all over it. And then I think the third weekend, the Air Force released a story, and I think it was the largest press conference of the decade, and they said that it had been a temperature inversion which caused this. Naturally, the press got it. And,
well, it says here the press got photographs. How do you photograph a temperature inversion?
Well, that's a good question.
So, I've never seen the photographs. What do they look like?
Well, the photographs were, of course, confiscated. They had a very good machine in place for dealing with the press and for dealing anybody who had photographs. They still do. Now, once in a while, you'll see a photograph of the bright light in the sky, but you won't see any real good photographs because somehow they get all of those.
Then there was a recovery near Johannesburg, South Africa, back in '53, and I sort of vaguely remember something about that, John. What happened?
Well, there was the one then, I don't know too much about that, but there was one also several years ago that...
yeah, maybe that's the one I remember.
That supposedly crashed, and we sent one of our... they have the recovery teams with the C-5As, and they go over there and they load it up and bring it back to wherever. Some say Wright Patterson, some say out here at Grim Lake.
All right, and then the first official meeting in 1954, supposedly, between Eisenhower and the aliens at Muroc Dry Lake, is that correct?
Yeah, and as ridiculous as this may sound, there's very good evidence that did occur, and Muroc was the original name of Edwards Air Force Base. It was later named after Glenn Edwards, who I think crashed in a flying wing there. But it was called Muroc, and Eisenhower was vacationing at the time in Palm Springs. And he was called to Edwards by the military, and the press was given the story that he had to attend an emergency session with a dentist as the cover. But in fact, this is when the meeting occurred, and Eisenhower essentially told these people that the world was not ready to see them or be aware of them, and that's where it stood until the Parliament encounter of 1964. But later, the dentist was interviewed and said, no, he didn't have an appointment with me. So the cover story was started to unravel.
All right. By 1956, with more recoveries having been done, the first human mutilation occurred, is that correct?
Yeah, well, the first one that they knew about, and that was in the Grudge 13 report that Bill English read, and it was Jonathan P. Lovett, who was a tech sergeant out on Holloman Range, and he and the captain were out there recovering some missile debris about 3 o'clock in the morning. And as the story goes, Lovett went over this hill to where there was kind of a bright shining light, and the captain called after him and didn't hear any response. And he went up to the hill and saw this disc with kind of a snake-like arm coming out of it, and it had grabbed Lovett, who was kicking and screaming, and dragged him in this saucer. The captain, who was petrified, got back in his jeep and went back to the base. And he was in fact charged with murder because there was no body. But about 10 days later, they recovered the body. It was about 10 miles downrange. And I won't go into the details, but it was horribly mutilated.
imagination of how bad it could be, and it was worse than that.
In 1957, John, you say there was the prohibition of the word space in the media.
For about 10 months, the media was not allowed to use the word space in any of their stories.
Why?
They were just worried. They didn't want the public to be thinking or be aware about anything in space. This is before Sputnik had gone up, and you have to understand at that time the government was just petrified about this whole thing with human mutilations and saucers crashing all over the place. They didn't want the public thinking about the possibility of anything other than terrestrial stuff.
John, while we're on the subject of mutilations, Linda Howe, who does this show with me on Sunday called Dreamland, concentrates a lot on animal mutilations, and I just got an article from somebody. It came in the Associated Press article, and with a local kind of angle to it in the Albuquerque Journal dated Sunday, August 14th, so it's brand new. There are cattle mutilations going on like crazy right now in northern New Mexico, and they really are odd, John. High heat used, genitals and tongues and so forth and so on removed, all that sort of thing going on, and it's going on massively now in northern New Mexico. Are the cattle mutilations related in any way to the human mutilations?
I don't know, but they do the same thing. They core out the rectum, they take the genitals, they carve the eyes out. They follow the same pattern. We had a very interesting incident happen here in Nevada. If you'll remember, in 1990, there was a big story about 128 sheep that were found dead in central Nevada.
Yes, I recall.
Well, the interesting thing is that area was sealed off from all reporters and researchers, and no pictures were ever released, and no independent inspection was done. And after the initial interest, there was only one story done by a reporter in Reno. This reporter never went near the horses or the site, but relied mainly on unsubstantiated reports from the authorities. And he wrote that the horses were killed by rifle bullets fired from persons who were charged, but then later released for insufficient evidence.
Right.
And this reporter received the Pulitzer Prize for his reporting.
Huh. If you had to hazard a guess with regard to all these cattle mutilations, what do you think's being done?
I don't know. It has to do with genetic experimentation. Those particular parts of the body, I think they use it, hormones, secretions, that kind of thing, for whatever they're experimenting.
Well, there are people who suggest that it's our own government, that our government is somehow doing it. But it wouldn't make sense to me that our government would feel a need, or would even have a need, to raid anybody's cattle farm.
Well, certainly if it was our own government, they would do it a little bit more discreetly. There's no question in my mind that we do some of that, but the major portion of it is done by someone else.
Well, you'd think the government could get cattle if they need cattle.
Certainly they could have a farm, and they wouldn't leave the bodies lying around just to invite speculation.
All right. The explosion over Nevada that you talked about, then a recovery of a craft in New Mexico in 1962.
Yeah, I was just trying to find a copy of that of the Las Vegas Sun. Had a front page story of this explosion that occurred. Well, it was seen all over Nevada, but apparently part of it crashed in Mesquite, and apparently that was one of the first test flights that our government made in a recovered extraterrestrial craft. And because of the disastrous outcome of it, there was no more testing in it until 1972. But apparently that was us trying to fly one of the extraterrestrial craft.
Okay, is that one of them that had crashed, or was one turned over to us in some way? Or
all I can tell you is it was acquired. Now, whether it crashed and it was good enough working order to fly, or whether it was turned over to us as one of the ones that Linda Howe talks about at Hill Air Force Base in Utah. Everybody wakes up one morning and there's one
just sitting on the ramp. The doors are open. It's just sitting there. And that was one of the cases where we had to quickly cover it up and take it somewhere. But it was just sitting there on the ramp. Now, who gave it to us? I don't know, but it was just there.
Boy, it's so hard to fill in the blanks sometimes. The Holloman incident in 1964, an agreement in the late 60s, the building of Dulcie, recovery near Fort Riley, Kansas. That was a busy year.
Yeah, that was, the Holloman incident was documented by Sandler Productions, the film that was released in 1973, and that was actually supposedly the first attempt by the government to release information to the public. And they took Sandler's film, who was a CIA front in Los Angeles, to write a documentary outlining the history of UFOs and to end it with the actual film, the actual landing at Holloman. And that was going to be the final part of the film. Well, we got everything done. Emanator himself, Robert Emanator, who's a close friend, actually had 800 feet of this film in his house. He did not view the film, but he was given it to him by Paul Shartle, who was head of the audiovisual department at Norton Air Force Base, and Shartle watched the film in its entirety. And he says there's no question that it was a real film, and that it showed these three saucers coming down, one landing, the other two going away, and then three people coming out. They were humanoid, but slightly different than us. They had a weapon. And this film was supposed to be shown at the last part of the actual documentary. It's called UFOs Past, Present, and Future. At the last minute, the Pentagon withdrew the film and said, we want you to not use this film, but depict the end in terms of it may have happened. And so if you ever see a copy of this, you'll see Rod Serling, who does the narration, say, let's consider an incident that could happen in the future or already may have happened in the past. And in fact, it had happened. And that's how the film got released. But that was the incident, the Holloman incident that they talk about.
All right. What is Dulcie, the building of Dulcie?
Dulcie was an underground base that's still active. It's on the Colorado-New Mexico border near the town of Dulcie. It's completely underground. It's my understanding it's about 1,000 to 1,500 feet underground, and it's where supposedly the CIA and the aliens do joint genetic experiments. I've been out to Dulcie. I've talked with Gabe Valdez, who is head of the Highway Patrol, the Mexico Highway Patrol, and his area was Dulcie. I spent 2 evenings with him driving around the entire area, heard all his stories about all the craft he'd seen, and the evidence that Dulcie was in fact there. And there's no question in my mind that it was there, and that it still is there. And there's a story that will come up later, what's called the Dulcie incident, which happened in 1979 when we get into that part of the time.
All right, and a recovery at Fort Riley, Kansas.
Yeah, there was either recovery or a landing, and several of the soldiers who were there watched it come down.
And one near Kecksburg, Pennsylvania.
That's a very famous event. It's covered in a lot of these things like Hard Copy and Entertainment Tonight. They do the story on this every once in a while, but there was a recovery there of an acorn-shaped object. And there's quite a lot of evidence for that.
Boy, we must have a lot of artifacts stored somewhere, not just bodies, but discs and parts of discs and all the rest of it.
We do. And I was just reading a story here from one of the researchers in Springfield. Talked about 4 military personnel who were engineers, and they were flown one night, 4 hours, they did back near Wright Path. They didn't know where they were being flown. They had to sign special security oaths. They say that after 4 hours they landed and they were blindfolded. They were taken out. They said when we stepped out it was like being in the desert. They weren't allowed to lift their blindfolds up. They went into this hangar and the lights were turned on. They were the blindfolds taken off, and they said this whole thing was full of all kinds of
artifacts. And there was quote, a curator there, and they were allowed to inspect, and they were there for 4 days to inspect and speculate on what these items might be. And then after the 4 days, they said they could come back anytime they wanted, and if they had any fresh ideas, but they were not to discuss this incident with anyone.
How intriguing. Then there's 1967. This one's close to home. A big disc, a large disc, hovers over Las Vegas school, it says, and children are sent home. Really?
Yeah, a friend of mine, Tabitha, was, I think, one of the students there, and this disc hovered over the school, and the children were sent home, and they remember this incident quite clearly. So I'm not sure whether it was her or somebody else, but that did happen in 1967, and along with that, there was a landing at Nellis Air Force Base where a saucer landed, and people got out, and a colonel who was there drew his weapon, and the colonel was paralyzed in place, and the weapon rendered inoperative, and a few minutes later they took off.
Well, John, we're about out of this hour, but I want to ask you, you have flown and flown and flown and flown. You've been in our skies, looked more into the skies than probably most of us. In all those zillions of hours, how many air hours do you have now, John? Do you know?
17,000.
17,000 hours.
Yeah.
In 17,000 hours, one would think if they're up there, you would have been one of the guys who would have seen one of them.
Well, let me tell you about flying. You're not sitting there looking out the window. You're looking at your instruments, particularly when you're flying jet aircraft. Now, at night, when it's more likely you're going to see something, you can't see outside because you've got the glow of the instruments inside, and you have to put your face up to get rid of all the cockpit reflections to do it, and it's something that doesn't happen.
So then, unless it was close and bright, you probably wouldn't see it.
No, you really wouldn't. And the only time that I ever saw anything, and it's still interesting these days when I think about this incident, it never occurred to me. I was in a Learjet, it was in the afternoon, I was descending from over Palm Springs, so I was on a flight from Wichita to Los Angeles. I was descending through about 18,000 feet. How high would I have been?
John. I've never heard this story, so hold this story. We're now at the top of the hour. When we come back, we'll tell this story.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
Now, that is one I haven't heard. Apparently, John has seen something as he thinks back over it. We'll get to that right after the news at the top of the hour. Cheerio, everybody. Friday night turning into Saturday morning. This is CBC.
Call Art Bell. In the Kingdom of Nye, toll free at 1-800-618-8255. 1-800-618-TALK. First time callers 702-727-1222. 702-727-1222. Or use the wildcard line at 702-727-1295. This is Coast to Coast AM on the CBC Radio Network.
It certainly is. Beginning of a holiday weekend, a Friday night, now Saturday morning. My guest is John Lear, airline captain, and very much a believer in IFOs, Identified Flying Objects. And we will get back to John in a moment. Once again, my guest, John Lear, who has flown in jet aircraft for many, many thousands of hours, and pressed a little bit, now recalls one incident where he saw something or another. Anyway, John, when was it? What did you see?
Well, it was like 1966 or so, and I was descending in a Learjet from on a flight from Wichita to Los Angeles, and descending through like 30,000 feet. And I was headed westbound, and from my left to my right, I saw what I thought at the time was
and I mentioned it to the co-pilot. When I landed, I distinctly remember calling Hank Beard, who was chief test pilot at Learjet, and I said, "Man, you'll never guess what I saw today." And he said, "What?" And I said, "A lifting body passed me." And only after, 25 or 30 years do I look back and say how ridiculous that was, because under no stretch of the imagination would a lifting body be in the main approach corridor for the Los Angeles International Airport.
Heavens no.
So I don't know what I saw, but in all my thousands of hours, I guess that's the only strange thing I ever saw.
That's it, huh? All right. There's so much history to go through here, John. I guess let's jump up to a violent encounter, supposedly, between UFO humanoids and the U.S. military at Lumberton, Ohio.
Yeah, there was two. There was one that happened in Cambodia and one that happened in Thicket, Ohio. The one at Thicket, Ohio was an encounter between the occupants of an alien craft and a U.S. military detachment, and there was 11 American casualties and an unknown number of aliens. And one of the researchers met a guy who worked at the off-limits area at Light Path, who claims to have seen bodies on litters arriving at the base during that time frame.
Oh. As I go through the history, it is interesting in one respect. All of these occurrences, all of these witnesses, all of these bodies, how can it, well, of course it isn't really kept secret, because here we are talking about it, but still the official cloak of secrecy remains. How can that be?
It's great. They can keep a secret if they want to.
Well, that's really true, and if anything, the revelations about the nuclear testing, I think, prove that. How I can't imagine how our government could have kept secret the fact that they were feeding radiation to children, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But they did. All right. You mentioned Cambodia, a firefight between U.S. military and small gray humanoids.
Yeah, that was in April of 1972. And what happened is members of the U.S. Army Special Operations Group were involved in a firefight with the occupants of an identified alien craft. There were several alien casualties and a single human dead, though several were burned by an unknown weapon. And what happened was this platoon happened on a group of aliens who were sorting human body parts into large bins and sealing them. A firefight ensued and several of the aliens were killed and through headshots because the suits that they were wearing were essentially bulletproof. And as the soldiers pulled back, several of the aliens quickly packed as much as they could, got in this craft, and it took off. The unit was interrogated originally by military personnel and then by civilians who were identified as representatives of MAGIC, and they are part of the Majestic group to go out and help cover these things up.
All right, looks like we're going to jump into the tough stuff early. Why, John, would they be packing up body parts?
Well, you got me. For every answer I've ever gotten in all this research, I get 10 more questions posed. So if you're looking for answers...
Well, I think this, though, goes to a pretty awful area. I mean, you have not ruled out the possibility, have you, that we are, for them, food?
No, but it's kind of far out. I did make that statement once in an interview, and I've regretted it ever since because it sounds so outrageous. I'm not sure that
listen, let me stop you, John. It really did sound outrageous then, but you know something? I've been interviewing a lot of ufologists, scientists, scholars, people who have said things that when they say them, John, they suddenly harken back to some of the early interviews that I did with you, and I'll say to myself, sometimes out loud, I'll be damned. I remember John said that, and a lot of people guffawed, and here we are. I mean, a lot of that stuff that you told me, John, has been coming back recently.
Yeah.
And a lot of investigators, John, are beginning to go down some of the same roads you did. Back then, you were one of the only ones saying, look, these guys are not necessarily warm, fuzzy, nice people who wish us well.
Right.
And you were almost alone then. But now, let me tell you, John, more people than not are beginning to join you in that in that view.
Yeah.
At any rate, the Dulce incident.
Okay, now the Dulce incident I first heard about in 1986 or 1987 when I was invited to be part of a group of researchers who met at Crestone, Colorado, and we just traded information. And I was handed a letter by one of the guys who knew who had got this letter from a person who lived in Las Vegas, and said, "Why don't you research this?" And it talked about this underground base, and it sounded so far out. But I met with this person, and she had known one of the officers who had worked inside this base, and originally told about the massacre at Dulce. I further heard a story by a guy named Paul Benowitz who lived in Albuquerque, who was involved in this, and he told me about it also. And the story went that in 1979 we had 44 scientists who were being instructed by the aliens in some subject. I don't know what it was, but they were being instructed at Dulce, and for some reason it was agreed that our security force, our Delta Force, would not carry conventional weapons at any time in this classroom or around this area. And for some reason, one of the officers walked in with a conventional sidearm, and the alien killed him outright. Now, how that was done, I don't know. But on the video, on the monitor, his compatriots, or the Delta Force, saw that he was killed, and they went down en masse to exact revenge, and it ended up that all 44 scientists and about 66 of the Delta Force were killed. It was just a complete massacre. So I just put this in the file as an interesting story, and it didn't come up again until Bob Lazar, who worked at S4, and we'll get into that later, read a report that documented this massacre. Now, the only thing different about the report that he read was that in the report he read, the massacre occurred somewhere around Area 51 or Groom Lake.
Is there any indication of how they were killed, John?
No, just head wounds. In the report it said that they died of head wounds.
Head wounds. Again, that's a lot of relatives who are going to be requiring explanations and that sort of thing. How was it all explained?
Well, now remember, this is just speculation of how they handle it. We've realized now that most of the people that get in this program do not have relatives for one reason or another. Either they're orphans or their family is passed away or whatever. And it's essential that this kind of thing happen. Or kind of go this way because they don't want to have to take the time to explain away the death of a relative.
So the people who do these things are screened specially for this kind of work, which includes
very specially. But they also have other methods. They can go to the family and say, "Look, we're going to give you a annual or monthly stipend." But this is, national security, and it's for God and country.
And so here,
this again.
Yeah. So sign this, and it'll be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. Then I think it was an incident that had a lot of influence on you, didn't it? Bentwaters in 1980.
Yeah, Bentwaters occurred during 3 days at the end of December. We have a United States Air Force base about 70 miles northeast of London called Bentwaters. At that time, I think it still is an A-10 base, the Warthog tank killer. And very strange things happened during those 3 days, culminating with it wasn't a landing, it was an appearance of a very weird aircraft witnessed by General Gordon Williams, who was the base commander, Major Ted Conrad, Colonel Chuck Hogg, Larry Warren, and a few others. But at any rate, the incident did occur, but it was just a story as far as I was concerned. Many pilots had heard it. And in 1985, I ran into a friend here in Las Vegas, an Air Force friend that I knew in Laos. And he was transferring from the regular Air Force to the Guard, and he came over to the house, and we started talking about stuff, and I mentioned, I asked where he'd been based, and he mentioned Bentwaters, and I said, "Oh, that's supposedly where that saucer landed in 1980. He said, "No, John, not supposedly. It did." He said, I was confined to quarters, but I know the guys who did. And their names, and I said, wait a minute. You're telling me this stuff is real, that there are flying saucers? Because at this time, I had no real interest in this stuff. My interest was in spy planes, SR-71, U-2s.
I understand. What about your dad, John? I know your dad had great abiding interest in all of this. Didn't any of that rub off on you, or was it self-ignited?
No, because there was no proof. He was certain that they existed, and now that I look back, it's because of who his friends were. He was friends with General Vandenberg, who was first head of the CIA and an original member of MJ-12. He was very, very close friends with Jimmy Doolittle, who was up to his eyeballs in this alien stuff. But, he never let on to me, and it was just not a part of my interest. Sure, everybody's interested in flying saucers, but, unless you see one or have hard evidence, it's just not a part of your life. But in 1985, it became a part when Greg said, yeah, it's true, it's going on. And that's what involuntarily, I might add, launched me into this research.
Okay, so that was then really the beginning of your interest?
Right.
All right. In 1983, you have written Second Attempt at Public Disclosure, Linda Howe, MJ-12, and something about HBO. What does all that mean?
This was when Linda Howe was contacted by MJ-12 in order to do a documentary, and they said that they would make available to her many, many thousands of feet of saucers and whatnot, and they wanted her to write a documentary that would be presented on HBO. And she contacted HBO, and HBO said, we'll do it, but before we air it, we want a filmed interview with the president, his chief of staff, and his National Security Council saying that this is true. And MJ-12 essentially led her on a round robin, so to speak, of different bases and different facilities and all kinds of things for about 8 months. At the end of which, it was just terminated. She never heard anything more.
Well, that must have been very frustrating. I'm going to have to ask her about that.
There was no more contact, and only a few years later did she run into somebody who was involved in that, and they said, I'm sorry it turned out the way it did, Linda, but we had no option. There was no further explanation.
Wow.
But the stories she told me of where they took her and the things she saw is just absolutely fascinating. And of course, Linda Howe is very articulate, very knowledgeable, and keeps voluminous notes. So, it wasn't just some story she was telling.
By the way, John, again, on the subject of Linda Howe, I talked to her earlier today, and she said she's going to be on the way to New Mexico. She's had enough. There's too much going on down there, so she's going to be on her way to New Mexico, and will be reporting to us from New Mexico.
Well, she was the leading authority on mutilation. She did that documentary for the ABC affiliate Denver in 1980.
Right, I believe so.
And then her and I, after the Crestone meeting, drove down to Roswell. And oddly enough, here we are driving out in the middle of the desert, just about miles north of where the first UFO crashed. And we're on this little teeny road. It's a dirt road about 1 million miles from nowhere. And I'm driving along in this truck, and we saw a dead cow. And I thought, well, here I am with the world's leading authority on cattle mutilations. And we see a dead cow. So we get out there, and there was none of the classic cookie cutter incisions. But we started looking around, and we saw 3 others. And then we saw 2 others, and then I stood up on the bed of the truck, and I think we counted 34 cows.
Wow.
And so we went to found the nearest ranch and asked the guy if he knew about the cows, and he said, yeah, he said they died of some disease. Well, Linda Howe checked in with a veterinarian on this, whatever the disease was, and I don't remember what it is now, but the veterinarian said, no way. He said, if that had been that disease, that place would have been cordoned off within 100 miles. Just a very odd, one of those unexplained.
It is, and I've heard Linda Howe tell exactly the same story, John. So I guess that's the way it happened.
That was her. That's weird. And that was like in 1986.
All right. She's still trying to get it out to the public today, and that's well well over a decade now.
Yeah.
Then the Eisenhower Breedy 4 leaked to Hollywood producer and friend of Bill Moore.
Yeah, that was Jamie Chandra, and one day he received in the mail this film, which was undeveloped, which he had developed, and it was the Eisenhower briefing as we've come to know it, and it was supposedly the briefing that Eisenhower got when he became president on the alien situation. It told the members of, told about the Roswell crash, it told it told the original members of the 12 and what they planned to do with it. It's a very interesting document. Now, people say and I say the information was definitely true, not necessarily that the document itself was a legitimate document.
All right. Then you say 1985, my interest begins. Actually, it began a little earlier than that. What made you write that, John? Why 1985?
That's when Greg Wilson came through Las Vegas
and told you the story about Bellwater. Yeah, okay, I see. Then 1986, and I remember this one very well. JAL 747 captain is followed by UFO 3 times as big as an aircraft carrier, and I remember that.
It was an enormous craft, and it followed him for an hour. He was on his way from Keflavik, Iceland to Anchorage, fuel stop in Anchorage, and then on to Japan. And about an hour out of Anchorage, at 33,000 feet this night, this thing appears in front of the aircraft, and it was not a passenger flight, it was cargo, and so there's only 3 guys in the cockpit, but they all saw it. Radar had it, returned to be sure it wasn't some gigantic reflection of some sort. They went down to 29,000 feet to see if it would follow them, and it did. And then after about an hour, it just left, and they landed, gave their FAA report, and other than a few comical news stories ignored by the press, specifically by Aviation Week and Space Technology, who is our premier aviation magazine, didn't give it one word, not even a sentence.
Well, for all your flying, John, and the one incident you have had that may have been something like that, you must talk to all kinds of other captains, lots of friends in the industry. Do they talk about this, John?
Not unless policy, cockpit etiquette bring this up, unless I've been with the crew for a long time and unless it seems appropriate. But you find out that maybe a third of the pilots have seen something.
All right, we're at the bottom of the hour. This is where we pause. We've been doing sort of a historical look at UFOs, how John became involved, and we're just about up to modern. This is CBC.
From the Peering Coast to Coast AM with Art Bell, much more than just a talk show. To participate in the program, call toll-free 1-800-618-8255. That's 1-800-618-8255. This is the CBC Radio Network.
It is, and when we get the telephone lines open, that toll-free line will be restricted to people east of the Great Rocky Mountains. Good morning. I'm Art Bell. My guest is John Lear, airline captain, IFO investigator in semi-retirement. And we'll get back to him in just a moment. All right, back now to John Lear. John?
Yeah.
All right. We're getting up toward the modern day here, but first let us look at 1987, and particularly the Gulf Breeze sightings, because that's still going on, John. It's still going on. We're getting photographs. There have been recent photographs, one which is a very picture. A lot of people are following up on that right now. And the same gentleman at Gulf Breeze continually seeing these craft. What is your assessment of what happened at Gulf Breeze?
Well, I first heard about it in
when the Channel 4, I believe it was down there, put out the documentary, and it had Ed Walters' film that he took out the back door of this craft hovering behind the tree line there, just over the tree line. And it was tremendously interesting, and there was no doubt in my mind that from the videotape that this thing occurred, but there was so many people jumped on it as a hoax, and they just did backflips to try and prove it was a hoax. But
that's right.
In my opinion, it was not. It was the true thing. And Ed Walters just took a tremendous amount of years for showing this film and for saying the things he did. But I believe him 100%.
He's not easy to get as an interviewee. I've tried to get Ed Walters a few times, and he's somewhat cantankerous and not very interested in publicity. Is that your take?
I would be too if I had undergone what he did. I mean, he just took it was merciless.
Mm. Wasn't there something about somebody who supposedly found a model in a house that Walters had rented or something or another? I can't.
He sold his house, and the people who moved in found in the attic a model of what he had videotaped, made out of, I think he's a designer or an architect, out of some architectural drawings that he made. Unfortunately, the people who tried to hoax this used architectural drawings that were dated substantially after this incident.
Oh.
And it was just a complete setup from beginning to end.
Oh, well, and yet that and the guys who tromped around the field in England and any other story, weak as it may be, John, that seems to make people laugh at all this and say, aha, see, what a hoax. Those stories stick like glue.
Yeah.
50 people can look up in the sky and see a saucer or see a craft, and one stupid story comes along and it blows away all that good. Why is that?
Because the disinformation is so firmly in place after 46 years that there's just no way. They've done a fantastic job of disinformation.
What is the John Lear hypothesis?
That was the hypothesis that I wrote in December of 1987 when I felt really strongly that people had to know what we're here, and they have a deal with our government to provide help in the security and the secrecy of the overall program in return for advanced technology, some of it weapons, some of it other technology. And it was just something that I wrote then, which became known as the John Lear hypothesis. Since then, I've modified several of the views. Essentially, it's the same.
So by 87, you were deep in.
When I gave the lecture, and that's when usually I think they had seating capacity for 300, and they never had a speaker that drew over, say, 40 or 50, maybe 60 people. And they had 700 people show up every time I came to speak.
Wow.
And it was then one of the guys who attended the lectures wanted to borrow some tapes and came over to my house and brought with him a young scientist named Bob Lazar. And Bob Lazar had formerly worked in New Mexico at the LANL. What am I trying to say there? What laboratory?
Was it Sandia?
No, not Sandia. I don't know how I could forget that name, but he worked there as a scientist, and he just didn't believe in UFOs at all. I mean, it was a joke to him. And we watched some tapes, and I loaned him some tapes, and over a period of a few months, he became more and more suspicious, not so much of the evidence of the existence of UFOs, but of the strange ways in which the government tried to cover up or suppress some of the information. At any rate, there came a point where he had not been in the scientific community for working with it for several years, and he decided that he'd try and get in and see if he could, find out if it was really true. So he made application to
first of all, he called Dr. Keller, who he had known from New Mexico.
Los Alamos. That's the SDI teller.
Right. And the father of the HMA. Through Keller, he was given an interview at EG&G, and over a process of, I think it was a couple of months, he was invited to go to work up at the test site. Now, I knew that he was getting interviewed, but I didn't know when he was going. And then in December of 1988, he came up to my house, and I'm writing out some checks, and he's sitting in front of my desk, and I said, "What's going on, Bob?" And he said, it was like about 7:30 or 8 in the evening. He said, "I saw a disc today."
Yeah.
I thought he didn't hear him clear. I said, "What?" He said, "I saw a disc today." And I said, "Theirs or ours?" And he said, "Theirs." And I said, "Oh my God, did you go to the test site?" He said, "Yeah, I just got back." And I said, "Well, then what are you doing here?" I said, "Obviously, they followed you, and you're not supposed to be talking. Why don't you work up there for a while and then tell us what's going on?" He said, "No," he said, "you've taken such a lot of flack over this that I think you deserve to know." And then he launched into what he had seen during the time he was up there, which included a disc and some of the technology and a lot of the briefing report. And we talked for about 3 hours. As a matter of fact, it was 3 hours and 17 minutes. Because when he got home, there was a knock on his door, and there was 2 security guys there who asked him to come along, that they had some questions. They took him downtown to an office there, and they said, "What were you doing at John Lear's house for 3 hours and 17 minutes?" And we had already cooked up a story where I was filling out a log page for his wife, who was a pilot. And it went from there. Anyway, he worked up there for about 4 or 5 months and would occasionally come by and say what he'd seen.
What was Bob's job?
Bob's job at S4 was he's a scientist. He was the back engineer, one of the extraterrestrial vehicles. In other words, his job was to back engineer the propulsion of the saucer, find out how it worked, and find out if we could duplicate it. But he said there was only about 20 people, maybe 15 or 20 people working up there, and they didn't really have the resources or the equipment to do a proper job. And one of the reasons he went public was his disagreement of how the project was being handled. He felt that it should be more spread around, that people with the actual talent, more people with actual talent should be allowed to participate in this project.
So it was very compartmentalized.
Very compartmentalized, as all things are. But at any rate, on March 21st, 1989, I was over at his house, and it was a Tuesday, and he said, "John, they're going to test fly one of the craft tomorrow. Do you want to go see it?" And I said, "Well, how can we do that?" And he said, "Well, I know a place near Groom Lake we can drive, and we can not be within the confines of the restricted area, and we can watch it." So he and I, and I think his wife, and Gene Hunt, who was the one who introduced me to Bob, drove up there, and I said, "When do they test?" He said, "Well, right at sunset. And it's always on Wednesday evening, because statistically, that is the time of least travel in that particular area, Highway 375. So we go up there and unload. We had my motorhome, and I had my Celestron 8 telescope, which is a very powerful telescope. And we were unloading it, and here this thing comes up from behind the mountains. And they're watching it, and I'm trying to focus it in. And very difficult, because I had the 90-degree objective in it, and up is down and left is right. But finally I got it, and there was no doubt in my mind I was looking at a real flying saucer. It was kind of yellowish orange, and it was radiating something. It was glowing, and it settled back behind the mountains. And for all the people that try and discredit Bob and say, "No, he didn't work there, no, he's just making this all up," the fact is, he told me a day in advance exactly what flies within, plus or minus a month for myself. So unless you think I'm in on the hoax, he's telling he did work there.
Well, of course, he's been way out of, there's been no remuneration that I'm aware. Guess there is some kind of a movie underway, though, isn't there, John?
Yeah, they're making a movie on his life story.
On Bob Lazar's life story.
Yeah, and it's I think New Line Cinema.
New Line Cinema, sure.
The movie company. I think they're well advanced in the project. I think they finished the script. I don't know too much about it, but
have you been involved in it at all?
No, not at all.
Not at all. So, through all these years of doing the interviews with you, John, as you've investigated and I've done radio, I have yet to see you be involved in any profit aspect of this. And you just haven't gone after it. And I'm sure you could have. I mean, your name is everywhere in UFO journals, and you have been at the very center of it. So you could have capitalized on it at any point.
No, I just wanted to find out what the truth is, if that was possible, just for my own interest. You know, I love flying, and that's my business, and I do it, 18 days a month, and I have 10, 12 days off, and I go out and, on my days off and take care of my lawn and the rest of the things I have to do. I'm not, totally absorbed, because it's very easy to get in this field, and your whole life is consumed with chasing down every little lead. I think I got to pretty much as we're ever going to find out, and that was enough for me.
All right. You were working flying then, of course, as you always do.
Right.
And this whole thing got you fired, didn't it?
Yeah, I was a senior captain with a very large charter company called American Transair. I was a senior captain on the Lockheed L-1011. I'd been there for 6 years. I was a check airman. And July 7th, they called me to Indianapolis, and I really didn't know what it was about. And I walked into this room, and there was the vice president of operations, the chief pilot, an attorney, and a guy from human resources. And they held up an article that had been written about me, and they said, "John, is it true that you believe in flying saucers?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Why?" And I gave them, about a 10-minute summary, and they said, "John, there's just no possible way that anybody who believes in flying saucers could be a captain for American Transair. You're fired."
You're fired, just like that.
I said, "Well, now look," I said, "if it's, I tried not to involve the company at all." I said, "How about if I just not give any more lectures, and we take a look at this maybe 90 days down the line, and you can see that, I've been true to my word." And they said, "No, this is it." And so they gave me 3 months' pay if I would sign a statement that I would never sue them, which I did, because I couldn't afford to go very long without a paycheck.
Sure.
And I went to work for another company.
As you look back on your career now, John, how much effect, other than that particular incident, has there been?
I lost another job that I really would have liked to have had, that involved the Air Force and NASA. It was a project that I really wanted to do, and I was actually hired by the contracting company, but they called me up one day, and the contracting officer, and said, "John, I don't know what you did to irritate the Air Force and NASA, but when we submitted your name as one of the pilots, they said not only no, but hell no." And
so there's been plenty of effect then.
Yeah, I don't give lectures anymore. I never wrote a book. I don't intend to. This is really the only thing that I ever do is whenever you call, because you've been really fair with me and over the years, and it's just kind of nice to come on and chat once in a while.
Yeah, it has been a lot of years now. All right, so that's a pretty complete history of your involvement and of UFOs in general. I've got a fax here, and if anybody else who wants to fax us with a question, by the way, you're welcome to do it, at area code 702-727-8499. And I'll give that number again. But here's a question for you, John. It's a classic. Art, a lot of people speculate the reason UFOs are kept secret is that it would conflict with religion. Personally, I think UFOs and religion can cohabitate in reality with no conflict. I'd be interested in what John has to say on the subject.
As you know, Art, I steer totally clear of any religious aspects of this, because all it does is irritate people. So
it really does, I know. And so I thought I'd just go ahead and get it out of the way with that question.
The answer is yes. What overriding reason is religion. And before we go to the phones, if that's what we're going to do...
We're right after the top of the hour, John.
Is what?
Right after the top of the hour, we'll go to the phones.
Okay, well then, give me time to ask 5 questions and answer them to avoid having people call up and ask the question.
All right, good. Let's. You want to start on that now?
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
If they're here, why don't they contact our president? Well, I think we all know the answer to that concerning our current president, but let's assume we had another president. And the answer is this. When you visit an ant farm, do you just talk to any old ant, or do you find the queen and talk to her?
Oh. I'm not sure I like being thought of as part of the ant farm, but I guess I am, huh?
Here's the second question. If the government couldn't cover up Watergate, how could they cover this up for 45 years? Well, the Watergate episode was an inside job to get Nixon out of office, just as the assassination of President Kennedy was, but with a little more, but not much more, tact. Now, that doesn't mean I agree with Nixon, but that was an inside job. The fact is the government can cover up anything they want to if it's important enough, and I can assure you that if you are reasonably well-informed, that you only know about 5% of what there is to know.
I used to wonder about that, John, myself, but I too have joined the club of you bet they can keep it secret, so...
Yeah. Now, let's see, if what you have to say is really true, John Lear, then why doesn't the government stop you? Number one, it would only add credibility to my story, and number two, I don't reach enough people for it to make any difference. The belief systems are too well locked in for me to be of any great threat at all. Without hardware, there is simply no proof, regardless of the number of eyewitnesses.
It's true.
Why wouldn't any of the astronauts or military officers come forward and tell the truth? The answer is for the simple reason that all of us are dependent on money, whether through current employment or retirement pay, for our very existence. For an astronaut or military man to come forward with the truth would net him 3 minutes on hard copy and the rest of his retirement working at a 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
For what?
Yeah, I agree. Although there was a recent statement by Neil Armstrong that would cause your teeth to rattle. Are you familiar with that at all?
No, what did he say?
Rather than paraphrase it, John, I'm going to dig it out of my computer during the top of the hour, and I'll give you the comment. We'll see what you have to say about it. It's fascinating. Anyway, do you have one more?
One quick more is, what about the news media? Your Dan Rathers, your Tom Brokaws, and your Ted Koppels, why wouldn't they come forward and tell the truth? And for the very simple reason that they are glorified teleprompter readers. They have very little to say about what they are going to say. They can't come in one fine day and say, tonight I'm going to expose the UFO cover-up. There are just too many people over him with vested interests, such as the station license, to let him do that, notwithstanding the fact that all he has is words and no hardware.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got rid of those 5 questions.
We have, but without fail, John, I would bet at least 4 out of 5 of them will be asked before the night's over. Hey, have you heard this story about the mysterious ocean noise, the thumping or the heartbeat sound?
Yeah.
They say they think it's man-made, and they're sending down divers, and they say it might be a ship, even thousands of miles away. These things do travel underwater, but on the other hand, it might be something else.
Well, yeah, I don't have any opinion on that.
All right. John, hold it right there. Relax. We'll be back. I'll get that statement by Neil Armstrong. Stay right there.
Okay.
You're listening to the CBC Radio Network. My guest is John Lear.
Ghost AM with Art Bell on the CBC Radio Network.
Good morning, everybody. I am Art Bell. My guest is John Lear, airline captain, believer in identified flying objects, IFOs. He says he knows what they are. We've done a 2-hour review of UFOs since about 1945 or 6, and John Lear's career and what he's done with UFOs. And John doesn't give many interviews. This is one of those rare times. So I suggest you stay planted. We're about to open the telephone lines. In fact, we are going to do that coming up now in just a moment. I want to remind you the toll-free line for the remainder of this hour, and possibly a little longer since we haven't even opened them yet, The toll-free line is restricted to those of you east of the Rockies at 1-800-618-8255. East of the Rockies only, 1-800-618-8255. Well, all right, everybody. I'm Art Bell. My guest is John Lear, the son of Bill Lear, who invented the eight-track tape deck, invented the Learjet, of course. John's father had an abiding interest in UFOs. John got one himself, but not because of his father's, interestingly. He did it on his own because of events that we've just documented over the last couple of hours. Now, back to John Lear. John?
Yes, sir.
All right. Neil Armstrong, on the occasion of the anniversary of the Apollo mission to the moon, was at the White House about 3 weeks ago now, I guess 4 weeks ago, something like that. Anyway, Neil Armstrong rarely does public appearances, rarely has anything to say, but when he does, wow. What he said, and I took this quote directly from the NBC Evening News, was as follows, quote, and he said this at the White House, quote, "There are great ideas undiscovered, breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers. There are places to go beyond belief," end quote. Neil Armstrong. What do you think he meant, John?
That sounds like a pretty powerful statement. Both Neil and Buzz Aldrin and most of the astronauts, all of them have seen something, and they've all seen incredible things. And they've been silenced by NASA, and over the years, it kind of wears at them. They'd like to get it out, but they can't be as blatant and say, yes, I saw this, and yes, I saw that. So I think that's basically what he's saying. I've heard some of the astronauts come out very vociferously and say, listen to me carefully. There are no UFOs. Do you understand what I'm saying? No UFOs. And what they're saying is, no, there's no unidentified flying objects. They're all identified.
The astronauts, particularly the ones that went to the moon, the early astronauts, have all had big trouble, John. Psychological troubles, a lot of divorces, a lot of drinking, a lot of trouble, period. And one source of that trouble, one might speculate, is that they have knowledge that they can't talk about that's eating away at them. Could that be so?
Definitely. And that's one of the ways in which they keep this secret is through it's called pain-drug hypnosis, where when they tell you this stuff, they give you a briefing, and it involves pain, it involves drugs, it involves hypnosis, so that it doesn't bother you that much, but it doesn't always work on everybody. And they know they have this knowledge, and it's hard to know something with this, with the ramifications of this kind of thing,
and not be able to tell
somebody.
Yeah, it would eat you alive, I suppose. John, just before we go to the phones, you have said, and this really is very different than a lot of ufologists today, that you've come to the conclusion that while you were digging in earlier years so that the world might know, you now don't think we ought to know, or that we have a right to know, or that it would be good for us to know, or how do you explain that and why?
Well, it has to do with religion, and no, people should not know this. This is something that, as irritating as might be, it's none of their business. There's nothing they can do to influence or modify it in any way. It's best they just go on with their lives and pay their taxes, find something they enjoy, boating, sailing, growing lawn, or something like that, and get on with their life, because there's no reason to know this. And if they knew the true ramifications of this, it would bother them. It would eventually result in the breakdown of society.
The breakdown of society. How much do you know, John, without telling me what you know, how much do you still know that you haven't told?
Not very much. I've told you much of this stuff. And, the stuff I'm not talking about is religious stuff. And if you think a while, you can figure out what it's all about.
I told you most of the stuff.
But maybe not all.
No, not all, because a lot of sensitive, very sensitive stuff regarding religion.
All right. Let us take some calls, John, and I want to remind everybody the toll-free line is east of the Rockies only at 1-800-618-8255, and let us venture forth. Hi there, on our east of the Rockies line, you're on the air with John Lear. Hello there. No, you're not. On the first-time caller line, you're on the air with John Lear. Good morning.
Hello, John. This is Kogo, San Diego.
San Diego, yes, sir.
Art, great show. Question, sounds like if the U.S. has some of this technology, that it really wouldn't be too big of a problem being confronted with other nations like Russia with their type of military. Do you think this type of technology can be implemented in such cases like war or anything like that?
All right. What about it, John?
Well, it certainly can, and this may be the result of the breakdown of the Soviet Union. Maybe we told them what we got and which direction we wanted to go in. I don't know that for a fact, but it's possible that happened. Our technology base is about 30 years of where everyone thinks it is. When you look at the space shuttle and all the satellites and the neat stuff we got going, our technology base is 30 years ahead of that.
30 years ahead of that.
Just to give you an example of what I'm talking about 25 years ago, you read in the paper about talking rock technology.
Yes.
And what that was they put a rock in an anechoic chamber and gave it a pulse like hello. And the rock absorbed the vibrations, and by measuring the vibrations about a half a second later, measuring the vibrations, they could pull out the word hello. Well, in 25 or 30 years later, what they have now is a means to beam into a room and pulling off, measuring the vibrations that have been given, any of the crystal structure like glass or windows or anything like that,
right,
and pull out a conversation that was held 7 days ago.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's some technology. On our east of the Rockies line, you're on the air with John Lear. Good morning.
Hello.
Hi, where are you, sir?
In Leavenworth, Kansas.
Leavenworth, all right.
Hello?
You're on the air. Go ahead.
I was wanting to talk about Project Blue Book.
All right.
I was wanting to find out whether it's still being researched or if you've even heard of it.
Well, of course, we've heard of it. John, any comments on Blue Book? It is no more, or is it now going on below the surface?
It was established in 1948 or 49, and it was brought to a halt in 1969 by the Condon Committee. And what they said is, based on all their research, flying saucers did not represent a threat to national security. Now, they didn't go as far to say is they didn't exist. What they said was,
they're not a threat.
They're not a threat. But project actually, the actual project was called Grudge. The research of different sightings, and yes, that still goes on. Project Grudge is an active project.
That's an interesting conclusion, to not rule out their existence, but state they have no, they're not a threat to national security. Doesn't make sense to me. If they exist, they certainly would be a potential threat.
Yeah. Well, they got away with it.
Yeah. On the toll-free line, you're on the air with John Lear. Good morning. Where are you calling?